This is Creepy and Geeky, a part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about the Tim Burton movies, Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd with Violet Hammond. To begin the episode, my friend Donna is back to talk about what we've been up to this week. How are you, Donna?
Hey, Robert. I am doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right today. You just had a birthday the other day, so, how's that been?
It was good. So I survived another rotation around the sun. I am now 53.
Yay.
Yikes. That's
Yeah.
so scary to say sometimes.
Right. I mean, I just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago, so I totally understand.
Yeah, but it was good. And I know we were discussing a little bit before we came on that, I'm still breathing, so I can't
Yeah.
complain. I really can't. And I'm aging like fine wine, so
Hey,
there's that.
Just like you say on your podcast, we're thriving and surviving.
We're thriving and surviving. Some people we know are not doing either.
No, yeah, no, plenty of people have fallen by the wayside along the way. So yeah, no, it's always nice to know that we keep kicking. Maybe it's just because we're so evil inside. I don't know.
I think that's what keeps us young. I think the
Right?
evil thoughts and the horror movies. I think
Right?
all of the lasciviousness. I'm only speaking for myself now. I cannot speak for you. I know that's definitely keeping me young and alive. But
right.
But yeah, I did have a birthday. It was great. I'm still enjoying the last hurrahs of my days off before I go back to work, and realizing that I can't hang with my kids anymore. I took my birthday was on a Thursday, and I took Friday off, and I was so glad that I did because my head was doing me in. It would have been terrible if I had to work that day. So, but thank you for putting that on the table. Now that I'm older.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to wish you a happy birthday on the show as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So what have you got for me today? What have you been up to?
So I'm gonna be 100% transparent with you. I only have about 3 tidbits.
Okay.
So what I've been up to, I'm gonna just throw this out really quickly. I'm gonna promote myself. I'm gonna plug it on your show.
Do it.
I've been doing this series called Mayhem because it's the month of May, duh. But the theme is to talk about movies that have May in the title. So that's
Right.
kind of what I'm doing so far, and I'm really loving it. It's been a lot of fun to try to find movies with May in the title in some way to talk about. And I think I've got a couple that not a lot of people know about. So I hope that turns people into watching it. But am I jumping in with my little news, or are you jumping in with what you watched?
Yeah, first? You go first. You got 3. I think I only have 2, so I think we can alternate.
Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was my secret boyfriend. I have many of those. I cannot help it. I have a lot of secret boyfriends, a lot of secret girlfriends. My husband is perfectly fine with this, y'all.
Right.
Because I will never touch these people. And he's perfectly fine because he knows that's never going to happen. Although I say that, and Malcolm McDowell is coming to South Carolina in August, and I am going to lose my collective shit if I don't go to see this man. I got to go see him. Well, anyway, what I brought with me today is my secret boyfriend, David Cronenberg, is having a new movie that's going to be coming out, and it's called The Shrouds.
I'm
a little hyped for it because Guy Pearce is going to be in it, and Diane Kruger is going to be in it. And not a whole lot is out about it. I obviously it's going to be a body horror, and that's like my cookies and cream. But that's a little tidbit of what I have. When I get more about it, I'll tell you more about it.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that. I confess I don't think I've seen very many Cronenberg movies. I think the only 2 that I've really seen are The Fly and Dead Zone. So
Yeah, you got to go back and watch them. I mean, I don't know
yeah.
if you like body horror like I do, though.
No, yeah, no, I'm not a huge body horror guy.
Yeah,
Like I'm not against it or anything like that. It's just not one of those that like I seek out. Um,
yeah. I
so
don't know, for whatever
but
reason, I kind of glommed on to him. I think it was Scanners. My uncle watched that with me when I was pretty young,
yeah,
and ever since then, it's just been like, what is Cronenberg doing? What is Cronenberg
yeah.
doing?
Well, and The
um,
Fly was so huge for us in the 80s.
oh my
That
gosh.
was like I that was like a seminal 80s movie, and that one's so gross. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I can see that one having an effect on people. So
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
yeah. All right. Yeah, I was for mine. I'm sorry. Were you done with that one?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Okay.
completely done.
So mine was I was supposed to originally go to three movies this last week. We ended up only being able to go to one. So we ended up watching Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is the new Planet of the Apes movie that just came out. I did rewatch all of the previous three for this
Hmm.
series, which I realized as I was watching the third one that I'd never seen the third one, which was War for the Planet of the Apes. It's a good series. I'm like it's very consistent. It's funny too because there's not a lot of people who really talk about these movies in terms of being like like a huge series for people. It's interesting. Um, but the movies are all really good, really consistent. Um, and it's a really fascinating story that's weaved through them all. Um, so if anybody's interested in that stuff, definitely go check out the new one, but go check out the original three also
Yeah,
before
I've
you do.
always liked those. When they came out with them, I was kind of on the fence, just because
Yeah,
of the Tim Burton
yeah, yeah,
remake of it back in the day. And then, watching these, I loved seeing the evolution of how we get to
right,
where we're going. We end up with the Charlton Heston version. How we
yeah,
we get to see the beginning of everything. So the trajectory has been really nice. The films all have really good storylines, and
right,
they're very entertaining. I'm glad you said that the newest one is
yeah,
good, because I do want to see that one as well.
yeah, yeah. And the newest one is set 300 years after the events of the last one, so a lot of time has passed and things have changed in the ape world. So it's definitely an interesting um where they've taken the whole storyline and where things are going from here. I think it's interesting too because I hadn't seen the original Planet of the Apes movies
Hmm.
in a very long time. And I still haven't rewatched them yet, but I was showing the trailers to my son the other day because we were talking about them and I was like, let's watch the trailers. These should be fun. Um, and then I realized that because I had always assumed that the new trilogy um had kind of taken their own road.
Hmm.
Um, they were kind of sort of retelling the story, but in a different way. But it is actually interesting to see that the original trilogy kind of follows along the same tracks as the third, fourth, and fifth movie of the original series. It's not like I mean, it's not for word
Right.
or moment for moment or anything like that, of course, but there's a lot of similarities. It's like they've gone back and said, hey, how can we modernize those and fit them into the framework that we're creating now? And so I found that you know, and again, that's just based on me seeing the trailers and not
Right.
actually having watched the movies. But it's very interesting to see how they've taken those original movies and kind of reinterpreted them
Hmm.
for a modern era and
Keeping it
going
in the
from the
same vein and adding their
yeah
own touches to it.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they kind of do something with what the first two as well and kind of reinterpret those along this same lines. Um, and fold them back into the storyline because they have the opportunity to at this point, but I don't know if they're going to go that far or not. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what they do with it. So, but this new movie was great. Highly recommended if you like these movies. definitely go check out the new one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. So glad that
Yeah.
you said it was good.
All right, what's your other thing?
So the other thing I have is that we finally get a long-awaited sequel to Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later. We're going to be getting 25 years later, I think, or 28 years
I think
later.
it's 28 years later, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so that one's coming out in 2025.
Right.
So I'm a little excited for that. I don't know how you feel about those films. I didn't really care for the 28 Weeks Later. That one was okay. Um,
I've never really like I know I've seen both of them, but I think I've
mhm,
only seen both of them once, and those were probably when they first right around the time they first came out.
right.
So I've never been like super hyped on either one of them. Um, or the franchise as a whole. Um, but I'm not against them. I need to rewatch them
Yeah.
to kind of refresh myself on them.
Yeah,
Um,
28 Days Later, I love the way it looked and the style of it, and it was nice seeing. I know everybody considers it a zombie movie, but really it's more of a virus movie. But
right,
I just that one had me. The sequel was okay, but they had to add bigger stars, and it didn't hit the way that the first one did for me. I'm
right.
hopeful that the 28 years later, because Danny Boyle is back with this one. I'm hoping that this one is as creepy as the first one was. I was deeply disturbed by that first one. And then of course when you think about it, after we've been through a pandemic, I was just like, oh my god, that is terrifying to
Yeah,
think of something like that spreading because it would spread so quickly because that's how COVID spread. It was like very quickly. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for that, and I think Alex Garland is actually writing this.
I think he's back for it, and then I think also Killian Murphy is back as a producer and
Right.
potentially as a star.
Yeah.
So
So that'll be interesting to see.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm always up for more in the horror world, and even if it's not something I'm gonna vibe with, more is always better because somebody likes it and it'll be their jam. So
Yeah.
that's how I am. I'm always positive about that stuff. Like even if it's not something I care about, like Terrifier 3. Not a big fan of the Terrifier series. It's okay-ish. I don't love it. I think the second one's better than the first one, and I'm hoping the third one will be even better than the second one. But um I I don't love them, and so I'm not like super hyped for it, but I'm glad other
Yeah.
people are, and I'm glad it's hitting for everybody. Like and obviously Art the Clown is a new horror icon at this
Of
point, and so
course. Yeah.
and I can see why, but yeah. So for me, it's like I might not vibe with everything, but you know I'm glad people do, and everybody's got their own, and that's what makes horror and movies in general fun. Is just everybody there's something there for everyone,
For
and
everybody.
so and
Yes.
sometimes we all meet in the Venn diagram, and sometimes we don't. So
I agree with you on Terrifier. It hasn't hit me the way like I know someone that just absolutely loves and
yeah,
obsessed over it, and then I'm obsessive over the thing, and they don't understand that. So
right,
you're right. It is very subjective. Whatever you like is good for you, but I applaud them for glomming onto it and
right,
keeping that horror vein alive. So that's important. We all have to have
yeah.
our own little things.
Yeah, that reminds me of something too, because obviously, as everybody knows, I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. And somebody had tweeted out recently that they said Evil Dead is the favorite for people who don't watch horror movies. And I was like, one, that is categorically false. Two, because like Evil Dead is some of the most goriest and most violent
Yes,
horror films of all time. um just because there's a few that are like have a huge amount of comedy doesn't take away from the gore.
the splatter is still
If you've
there.
watched Ash versus Evil Dead, they mix that so well. The gore in that show is insane. It's like it's crazy. um but it was funny too because in the comments people brought up another movie um that actually kind of makes more sense, and that was Scream.
Yeah.
Scream is the horror movie that people who don't watch horror movies. That's usually their favorite horror movie. And I'm like, you know what? I can't deny that, because that is the kind of the more accessible, more like um mainstream friendly franchise in a lot of
Right.
ways. Um so and that's not to take away from that because I'm also a huge
Huge
Scream
screen
fan.
fan.
So like, hey, but
I'm
I
right there
you
with you.
but obviously we love all of our other stuff. So I mean, it's I think that's what makes horror fun is that there's something there for everyone.
Yeah.
And you could be one of those people who really loves the quote unquote elevated horror stylings of the Babadook and the Hereditary and stuff like that. And I like that stuff too. But you can also love the gory, goopy, like gross,
Uh-huh.
weird shit.
Or you could be somebody like me that just obsesses over 80s horror film, no matter how bad they are. I will watch. You could give
Oh,
me
you're
the
not alone in that.
shittiest
So many
80s horror
people.
film, and I will watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, no. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. So, all right. Um so my only other thing that I can think of today for things to bring up is I have been working on uploading previous episodes. I'm sure people have been seeing this throughout social media. I've been pushing it kind of hard. Um
Mhm.
but I've been uploading previous episodes, older episodes onto YouTube. I
Oh,
It was suggested to me by Angel from Voices from the Mausoleum to upload my episodes up there to see what kind of an audience I can get there. Because we were talking about audience stuff recently, and she had that's why she solely does YouTube is because she wasn't getting much traction as a
mhm.
podcaster. Um, but she gets a bigger audience on YouTube, and I was like, okay, well, I'll start throwing those up there. Um, and so what I'm doing right now is I'm uploading stuff, and a new classic episode, uh, drops every day at 3 p.m. Eastern time, until it's complete. So it's
Oh,
just one
wow.
episode a day. I was gonna just kind of throw them like whatever episodes I got transferred up every day, but then I thought, well, let me just space them out one a day. That way it's not too overwhelming for anybody who might actually be following it. And it might kind of spread it out a little bit and kind of gain an audience that way.
Well, that's pretty cool. I actually
So
like that.
yeah, so that's my goal right now is I'm trying to put a put a put them all up. I've got over 130 episodes currently to do.
Jeez.
Yeah, and so by the time I even get caught up, I'll probably be in the 140s. So we'll see. We'll see how long that takes.
Well,
But
that's
yeah,
pretty cool of you. I like that.
yeah,
I can't
thank
wait
you.
to check it out there. I'll go there and subscribe.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Like, and I'd love for people who are listening to, like and subscribe. Check it out. Spread the word. I would love to get some more subscribers over there. Even if you don't listen to every one of them, if you listen to only a little bit of one or two here and there, that'd be great. But I would definitely love people to check it out and go subscribe over there and give me a follow. So, but yep, that's I think that's all I have for this week on my end. What's your last thing?
Man, you were just getting too cool for school,
Oh,
doing all of these cool
whatever.
things.
I wish.
Um,
That being said, I have thought of potentially doing YouTube only stuff. Like I would still be doing the podcast, of course.
right.
But like maybe once in a while doing YouTube videos that are, you know, only going to be on there. Special things where they'd obviously be more visual and stuff like that. Maybe interviews or something like that. So we'll see. I haven't figured out the logistics of it. I need to learn video production on that end, which will take me some time. But for in the meantime, I'm doing what I can. So
Yeah, I think that would be cool because you
yeah,
talk to a lot of really interesting people too. So that's a great venue.
yeah.
I'm so proud of you. My goodness.
Thank you.
So the last thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is something that's been getting a lot of buzz lately. I've been seeing it over on Twitter, and a couple of people posted it on Instagram. But apparently, Stephen King has been touting this movie
Mm.
as a really dark horror comedy that everybody should watch. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a 2022 Spanish horror film called The Coffee Table.
I have heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so apparently you can see it on Prime Video and I think Apple TV, but it is supposed to be a very dark, and they emphasize it is dark.
Yeah, I've heard
Um,
it's yeah, like disturbing, in terms of darkness.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm curious. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm gonna watch it right away. I'm just because it's like so hyped right now. I don't
Right.
know, but
Yeah.
I am interested. I am interested because it. I watched the trailer and it makes me think a lot of oh gosh, I can't remember. I just had a brain fart. It makes me think a lot of The Day of the Beast, the Spanish horror, that
Mm,
film. But
yeah.
but I feel like it's gonna, if you're squeamish, you may want to skip this one because I know it does get extremely dark, but it is supposed to
Mm,
also be extremely hilarious at the same time, which is
okay.
my peanut butter and jelly all day.
Right.
But but for everybody else, watch the trailer, maybe read the synopsis, and decide for yourself before you watch it because I don't want to gross anybody out, but I like being grossed out. So for me, I think I'm gonna give it a whirl. Maybe this weekend I'll try to watch it and see what the buzz is about.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out the trailer on that. I'd heard people talking about it, but I hadn't seen the trailer and didn't really know anything about it other than just it was getting a huge amount of buzz. And then
Right.
I did see the Stephen King thing also. So yeah, it's definitely been on my radar. I'll have to check out the trailer and see how it looks.
Yeah, it looks interesting. I have a feeling that my husband is not gonna watch it with me,
Right.
but that's fine. I'm kind of used to that. I'll have to rope one of my kids to watch it so that I can have somebody to discuss it with it. And if you watch it, then I can discuss it with you as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But that's all I got. That's
All
it.
right. Um, well, you mentioned earlier that you're doing your mayhem for May um episodes, and the first week I know you did the movie May. And what was your movie this second week that you just put out on Monday?
So there is a 2023 film. It is streaming. Let me see where it's streaming. Peacock and Tubi, probably a few other sites, and it's called Mother May I. I had
Mm.
not heard of this film. I had not seen this film. It was a first time watch for me, and it has Kyle
Oh
Gallner,
yeah,
who's
Kyle Gallner. Yeah.
yeah, and Holland. I can't remember her last name. She was in the Escape Room Tournament of Champions. She was the girl that couldn't feel pain, um,
Okay.
and it's an interesting psychological horror film. It's not a lot of gore, but it is pretty messed up. I I was very um, shocked by it just because of the overall tone of creepiness.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mother May I is the film that I'm talking about this week, and I'm really excited to talk more about it with other people when they watch it, or if anybody has seen it. Please hit me up and let me know what you thought about it because I have questions. I have a lot of questions about this movie, and I just need to talk it out with somebody.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, that was the one for this week, and then I'm super excited for the rest of them, which I will tell you about next time we meet up.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you coming back on. Make sure everybody goes and listens to the Dawn of the Dead podcast to keep up with her mayhem of May month. Um, and she's been doing weekly episodes this whole these past few months, and
I
each month has
know.
had a different theme.
What
So
was I thinking? I'm
I,
like a
d- I
every other week kind of
uh,
girl. Why
I
would I
think
be?
I know. I think I influenced you a little bit
You corrupted me
subliminally
a
with
little
I
bit, yeah.
know. I was doing two a week before. So,
It's been nice doing one a week since this
Yeah.
year started. I made a promise to myself to do it. And the episodes, you guys, are not always long, and they usually are
Yeah.
spoiler free unless I really want to do a deep dive. So, you got 30, 40 minutes, come check it out.
Yeah, definitely. They're a lot of fun, and yeah, she's pretty good about not spoiling anything. Just giving you enough to wet your whistle on them, and uh yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm caught up currently, which is good.
What can I say? I
So
like the tease. I want people to be
yeah,
titillated and go and watch the movie. A couple of people have
exactly.
done that, and they've come back to me and said, "Man, that movie May was so fucked up." I was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
it's been added to my list. I have not watched it yet, but it
oh
has
my
been added
gosh,
to my list.
it's wild."
Yeah, it sounds wild from the description that you gave
I
on your
literally would
podcast.
marry everybody in that cast. I'm just telling you right
Yeah,
now. It's like watching The Mummy. I would marry everybody in The Mummy, everybody in the 1999 film. I just want to marry everybody in that movie. That's it. It's my only goal right
there you
now.
go. There you go.
Kidding. But thank you for having me over. I cannot
Of
wait till we meet up
course.
again next week. I will hopefully have more stuff to bring, but I think we talked long enough.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think today was a good length.
Yeah,
We want to leave you with wanting more.
it's a good
So
size. It
yeah,
fits.
exactly.
Sorry.
It's all right. I was trying not to lead you down into your into your the way you say it, because I've heard you say it on your own podcast. I was trying not to go that way, but
I mean,
but I knew when
you
I
have
did
that
it, it was going that way. It's
you
fine.
have you have a friend, Robert, that anything you say
Oh
will
no,
become a really dirty.
no, and I'm the same way. I'm literally the same way. I can turn anything dirty.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I was trying to be good.
You failed.
I did failed miserably as usual.
I will leave. I will let you do your thing now. I'm done. I'm gonna be good.
All right. Well, uh, everybody else, stay tuned. I'm talking to Violet Hammond next, and we're talking Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd. Until then, stay creepy. On today's What's Your Favorite Double Feature episode, Violet Hammond returns to talk about the Tim Burton movies Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd. Violet is the managing director of a theater in New York. She's also been a guest on several other podcasts, including Frame to Frame, Movie Versaries, Den of 10, and more. Welcome back to the show, Violet.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. It's always good to have you on.
Yay. We have
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. Always, we always have fun. This could potentially be a very long episode.
I know. I know that I only have 1 page of notes and I split it in half to try to keep myself from going crazy. Because you just said I have the last thing I did with Frame to Frame was Ready or Not. I have 6 pages
Oh my gosh,
just on Ready or Not.
that's too funny. I
And we were
mean,
talking about
so,
Ready or Not and Glass Onion. So I think I had 10 pages in notes. It was so bad. I was like, I need to stop.
oh my
Someone
gosh,
needs to rein me in.
that's funny. And then you only did half a page of notes for each of these movies. What? That's ridiculous. Come
Well,
on.
you remember that meme that was going on Twitter a while ago where it was like, what are the 5 things that you could talk about with
Yes.
no
Yeah.
prep?
Yeah.
These movies are probably something that I could talk about with zero prep. So
Well, there you go.
the potentially long statement is
Yes.
frighteningly accurate. So
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I am a so why don't you start and tell
sure.
me why you brought these movies to me?
I believe that I brought you Sweeney Todd because I think we were talking.
Right.
I was complaining because my daughter wanted to go see it on Broadway, and I didn't want to see Josh Groban because he has absolutely no business being
Yeah.
anywhere near the role of Sweeney Todd. So
Yeah.
I was complaining about that.
That dude is so milk toast. What are you talking? Like, why is he can't play Sweeney
It's
Todd?
so annoying. Well, Aaron Tveit's doing it now, so he is much, much,
Who
much better
who
suited.
is?
Aaron Tveit, who, if
Not
you're not a
familiar.
big Broadway guy, yeah, he
Yeah.
He had, okay, this is like we're already off on tangents, but
Yeah.
remember when they did Grease Live a couple
Sure.
years ago or a
Sure.
while
Yeah.
ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, he was Danny in that. And I
Oh,
was
okay.
like, oh, I'm like, the whole world is gonna finally know how great he is. And
Nobody cared.
it wasn't that great. No, it was like I'll give him
No,
some of
that
the
thing bombed
responsibility
hard.
because I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God. No, the only thing that gave us was Jordan Fisher. Now Jordan Fisher is everywhere, which like he was also just in Sweeney Todd on Broadway. So
That's funny.
full circle, anywho. But yes, so that's how we started talking about Sweeney Todd. And I think you had said you'd only seen the movie once and a long time ago. And I said I
Yes.
could talk about that forever. And then when it was, okay, well, what are we going to do with a double feature?
Right.
And Sleepy
And this was,
Hollow kind of
yeah,
lends
yeah.
itself perfectly.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting about it too, having seen them and then going back and looking at the rest of
Mm-hmm.
Tim Burton's filmography. Um, like I like Tim Burton movies. I've always liked Tim Burton movies, and although I will admit like I've been spotty at seeing like some of his more recent things.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
and
after Dark
so
Shadows, who could blame you?
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We're here to
uh,
talk about happier Tim Burton
yes,
days
yes,
today.
yes, indeed. But but both of these are interesting because these are very much horror movies.
Yep.
Too. These are probably his two darkest movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because even Dark Shadows being a horror-esque thing, and you could call it horror, is very much more in line with a comedy,
Yes.
more in line with his other sensibilities, his more gothic sensibilities, whereas both Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd are very bloody and very
Very.
dark. Um, and while there's laughs to be had, I wouldn't say there's as many laughs in Sweeney Todd. But again,
Mm.
that's not his original kind of story. But and that does make it interesting with both of these as well, that both of these are adaptations
Yes.
of
Yes.
previous works.
One of them very loosely adapted.
Yeah, definitely.
Very.
Very.
But we'll
Um,
get into that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I when you brought it up to me, and this was a while ago. We actually planned
More
this
than a
out.
year.
Yeah, a good long
Easily.
time
We
ago.
talked about doing
Because
this
this
more than a year
was
ago.
well, because this was one of the first things that we talked about. Because you haven't been a huge horror person, and
No.
so when we talked about getting you on to the horror side of things, the creepy side of things, that
Mm-hmm.
you were like, well, what about Sweeney Todd? And so I was like,
Yep.
no, maybe because I'm not a big musical person.
I
So,
know.
so, um, and we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But we but so yeah, I think I might have suggested Sleepy Hollow. You might have said, I don't even remember. It's been so long ago now that when we originally planned this, that it's yeah, it's
I
hilarious. But
I think you suggested Sleepy Hollow because what I wanted was Dark Shadows because I just need somebody to give me a
right.
soapbox so I can scream about Dark Shadows for an hour because I know everybody really needs to hear that.
Maybe we'll have to do that as a follow-up episode. We'll have to find
Oh
something
my
else.
God.
We'll have to find
You know,
something else to combine it with.
I take it back. I don't want to watch it again.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into this. Let's go ahead and start with Sleepy Hollow since it's the first one that
Mm-hmm.
came out. And, do them in release order. Um,
Chronological order.
yeah. So Sleepy Hollow came out in 1999. Like we
Mm-hmm.
said, it is an adaptation of the Washington Irving classic story. But this is the one that took a lot of liberties with the story. Although, to be
Yes.
fair, like when looking at the production and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of stuff that he took from the storyline and just kind of twisted it a little bit. The inherent
Yeah.
character behind Ichabod Crane is still there. He's a squeamish dude. But it's very much in the original he was a school teacher, and in this he's a like a constable,
Yeah.
very
He's
much
like a
interested in the forensic sciences of things,
mm-hmm.
and um gets sent to the town of Sleepy Hollow to investigate these killings, where multiple people have been beheaded. um,
Mm-hmm.
and great cast. This is like, oh my
I
God,
know.
this is like a dream cast. I mean,
It
you got
really is.
Christopher Lee's in a small role,
Yep.
but you also have like this is 99, so this still predates, just barely predates the Harry Potter movies.
Right.
You have several Harry Potter alums in this movie.
Yep.
Because you've got Michael Gambon,
Mm-hmm.
Miranda Richardson,
Yep.
Christina Ricci's in this, which I know a lot of people had a hard time with the age gap between her and Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was 36 at the time. She had just turned 18 that year.
Yes.
So it the age gap is a little disturbing. But Johnny Depp had at that point still kind of a young look to him. So
He did.
he didn't seem to be 36, at least in his
No,
age. He could definitely pass for in his 20s.
definitely in this movie. Yeah. This is
Yeah.
probably the best he's ever looked in a movie, to be honest. Like, not to be gross about it, but I
No,
remember
no.
seeing this in the theater and never like loving all of Tim Burton's work up until now, and particularly Edward
Mhm.
Scissorhands, which I think is just amazing. And Johnny Depp's performance in that is beautiful. And again, like I just want to say, like up front, whatever we may think of Johnny Depp now from a 2024
Yes.
lens, like I had never been like a thirsty for Johnny Depp kind of person. And I
Yeah.
sat in the movie theater and I was like, has he ever looked better? Like, did he always have these
Yeah.
cheekbones? Oh my God, like they make him look gorgeous. He's so pretty in this movie.
Yeah.
So pretty. But I think the whole movie is pretty, like the whole thing from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
I'm going to say I firmly will say that Sleepy Hollow is my favorite of the Tim Burton movies.
Yeah, it's
Um,
probably mine too.
yeah, because it is just it hits all. It feels like the most Tim Burton. It feels like he is firing on every cylinder he can. The production design is fantastic.
Oscar
Um,
winning.
yeah, and the music by Danny Elfman is so good.
Oh,
It's like it's such the perfect combination of him, Danny Elfman, and Johnny Depp.
yeah.
It's like everything just works. The story is magnificent. Like I said, you've got Richard Griffiths in here who goes on to play Vernon Dursley
Yep.
in Harry Potter. Ian McDiarmid who plays the
Palpatine.
Emperor Palpatine in the Star Wars movies.
Yep.
Um, you've got Ray Park, who actually you
Yes.
don't realize he's Ray Park. I didn't know that until I was
Till you
catching
looked
up
it
on the
up
production
today.
stuff. Yeah.
I think I
Um,
actually knew that at the time, but
yeah.
that's just because he was such a big deal because of Darth Maul. So
Yeah,
I
so
think
it's
everybody
same
made a big
year.
deal.
This is the same year that the Phantom Menace came out. So Ray Park had a
Mm-hmm.
big year with these two movies. He played Darth Maul, but he was the main stunt person for the Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
And then so anytime you see somebody walking around, riding around without a head, that's Ray Park.
Yep.
Um,
All the axes and
and
everything.
then and then Christopher Walken as the Headless Horseman was so
So good.
fantastic. It was like just everybody was so great in this movie, and then um adapting it the way they did was just like I've got no problem when somebody adapts something and they twist it and they make it this good.
Mm-hmm.
um because this is, like I said, this is just incredibly perfect in terms of like everything. It's so hard to like, and we'll talk about it all, but
Yeah.
it's just so perfect in terms of the casting, the
Mm-hmm.
direction, the production design, the music, just everything works. And it's just like I said, it as much as I do like Tim Burton's work and I love his stuff on like the Batman movies and everything else, this one just seems to be the perfect um encapsulation. If I were
Mm-hmm.
ever to say, like if anybody was like, well, what's the one Tim Burton movie I should watch? Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow.
Like it just works perfectly. So,
It's
and I
very
think,
accessible too.
yeah. And
It's
I
yeah.
think things are great, like with Edward Scissorhands and those
Mm,
and Beetlejuice. Those are great movies, and the
yeah.
Batman movies and everything. Those are really good, and those are great examples and stuff like that. But they still have weird little like
The
funky.
quirkiness,
Yeah,
that
they're a
Tim
little
Burton
too, they're
quirkiness. Yeah.
almost too quirky.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I think that he kind of reined some of that back in this,
Yeah.
and that's like, So, like, as much as I say this is the most Tim Burton, it is, but it isn't. It's like
Yes.
Tim Burton, but kind of reining himself back just that tiny bit that makes it work perfectly.
Well, it was really interesting looking up the production today because obviously, like, this has been one of my favorite movies since it came out.
Yeah.
But I have, oh, 100%, but I haven't like really looked into it in a long time. I remember at the time, my favorite story was that every time Johnny Depp gets hit in the face with blood, it was actually Tim Burton squirting it on him. Like that, I thought was the funniest thing.
That's a very
That he
Sam Raimi thing to do,
Yeah,
you know?
that he was like, what, when he's doing the autopsy and it
Yeah.
goes and like hits him straight in the face. Like that was Tim Burton there, like, boop, because he just wanted that, that authentic reaction. And he
Right.
always has that look on his face, like, it's on my face again. Oh God, like
Yeah.
and that I think is hilarious. That's the most Tim Burton thing about it. That's always been my
Yeah.
favorite story about it. But I didn't realize that he came to the project and the screenplay was already there with all of the
Yeah.
elements
Yeah,
of
somebody else was
where
supposed to make it.
changing. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
he actually stayed with it and became the special effects, the creature designer, the person who
Mm.
was originally supposed to direct it, which I thought that was
Yeah.
amazing. That doesn't usually happen. People don't
No.
usually step aside and then stay with the project.
Yeah.
But they had intended, I think, to make it more slashery, like more
Yeah.
bloody, and like, and I think that when Tim Burton joined it, and this was after Superman Lives, so he really needed a hit. So,
Yeah.
like putting it in that perspective, also, that can
Yeah.
kind of explain a little bit of his. Let me rein it in a little bit. Let me make sure this is a hit. Let me,
Yeah. True.
commercially, I need something that's going to work because I'm in a really tenuous place in my career right now. But
Yeah, because this followed Mars Attacks as well, and
yes,
Ed Wood. Like he'd
which
made
critically
movies.
acclaimed, but
Sure,
not a
but
hit. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And like his last hit was arguably Batman Returns before that, just before that. So that was
Hmm.
92 was his last big hit.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like everybody loves to be on the Tim Burton train, because
Hmm.
looking at it, he only went like 2 to 3 years between movies.
Yeah.
And he up until lately, it's now been 5 years since his last one, which was Dumbo.
Yeah.
We won't get into that, but I haven't actually seen Dumbo, so
Me either.
but
No interest
I
in it.
have exactly. I have no interest in the live action Disney remake thing. It's just weird to me.
No.
It looked interesting though that they changed it up. It wasn't literally beat for beat the same movie.
You
Um,
couldn't.
and yeah,
You
no,
couldn't with all the racism. So why
no,
would you?
yeah, yeah. The movie's highly racist. Um,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, it's but yeah, so seeing just looking back and seeing, every 2 to 3 years he's got a new movie out. So
Hmm.
even with his, quote unquote misses, he was still doing good enough that he was still getting work. Because
Yeah.
after Sleepy Hollow, he goes and does the Planet of the Apes remake, which was
Yeah.
not great. Um,
But it made
it's
money.
but it made money. It's not
But it made
bad,
money.
but it made
Yeah.
money. But then, his next movie after that's Big Fish, which I think that was more critically acclaimed. It's a good
That,
movie.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
have a lot of love for that movie.
yeah,
It's pretty close to the book, which is a beautiful story,
yeah.
and
And
but
then
it's not a Tim Burton. It's very
right.
it's yeah, but
Well, and then he
yeah.
comes back with the big 1-2 punch of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Corpse Bride in 2005.
Ooh.
Those were huge. Those were huge for him. So
Hmm.
as much as I think we all look back on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory now and go, eh, um, it was big at the time.
Oh yeah.
I liked it when it came out. I've kind of softened on it over the years. But
Never liked that one.
I liked it because I liked it because Johnny Depp was really weird in that one. I think he
He
went for
was
it.
so weird.
He
Yeah.
went for it in a way that I just didn't think he'd go for it. And I was like, all right, but I'm definitely more a fan of the Gene Wilder version.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
anyway, back to Sleepy. But yeah, so he needed a hit.
He needed a hit, so
And Sleepy
that
Hollow
could
was a big
explain some
hit.
of the reining in. Yes, it was
Yeah,
a huge hit. It was
it was
200
huge.
million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody
And
saw this movie.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was enormous. Like
And the
it's
right time of year. It was
yeah.
right in the middle of spooky season. Like you
Yeah.
put this out at the right time. It
Yeah.
was Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just yeah. And it just lends itself to being that way too. If like yeah, what release date? November 19th. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just not too long. So it's perfect right in that holiday season, right after
Yep.
Halloween, right before Christmas, right before
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving. So you've got that perfect time of year. And that's really like honestly, I kind of feel like that's his perfect time of year.
Yeah.
Like anything he puts out would be really great right around that time of year. Because I mean, obviously Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah.
So he's got that lock on that one forever. But although let's all remember, even though it says Tim Burton's
Henry
Nightmare
Selick
Before
directed that
Christmas,
movie.
is that Henry Selick directed that, and he
Yes, he
gets
did.
no freaking credit. I mean, he gets the credit on the movie. Don't get me wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
it's so frustrating when people call it Tim Burton. It's like no, 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 no. Like, don't get me wrong. He wrote it and he
Yep.
did a lot of the artwork, and it's all based on his designs and everything. But Henry
From the
Selick still,
imagination of
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what it should be, from the
from the
imagination.
imagination of Tim Burton. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
Uh,
let's get back to sleep.
Sleepy
Um,
Hollow.
we're gonna just talk about his entire filmography today.
Tim Burton all over the place.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's Sleepy Hollow is yeah. It was. I remember. I'm not sure if I saw it in the theaters or not. It's so long ago.
Ooh, I
Um,
definitely did.
yeah, and I mean, you got to remember at that time I had my son was 2 years old, so
Mm,
the likelihood of me going out to seeing stuff in the theater was a little bit more slim at that point.
yep.
So it's possible, but it's probable that I probably caught it later on video.
Yep.
But yeah, and it is funny as much as it is like probably my favorite of his movies. It's not one that I've seen. It had been a long time since I'd seen it last. Um,
Okay.
but um, but yeah, it was still fantastic. It's
Oh, it's
so
so good.
good. It's so good. Um, and if you haven't seen either one of these movies, definitely go check them out. They're both
Mm-hmm.
on Paramount Plus right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I watched. I have Sleepy Hollow on 4K, so I just watched that, and then but I didn't have Sweeney Todd, so I had to
Mm-hmm.
watch that on Paramount Plus. And then when I was done, it was like it suggests Sleepy Hollow. I was like, well, I already watched that, so never mind.
But even Paramount Plus knew it was a good double feature.
Right, right. Exactly. They knew, and like so. But yeah, no, it is a lot of fun. Hit me with some of your notes that you want to talk about.
I
Because I don't
think
got any.
I know. Well, again, and I tried to rein myself in because I knew we were going to be like all over the place.
All over the place.
So, yeah, I did find that really interesting that they had already made the change from in the original story,
Yes.
Ichabod is a school teacher, and there's a really good adaptation of that. If you've never, have you ever seen Ichabod and Mr. Toad or no?
Oh, the
Disney, the
1940s
Disney
Disney?
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, good, good, good. Oh,
Okay.
whew.
Who of our generation has not seen that? Like,
Okay,
don't get me
well,
wrong. Like, I can see people below our generation not having seen it, but anybody from the 80s and earlier has probably seen it and probably saw it in school, honestly.
maybe
So,
school or where I first saw it was when Disney Channel first started, and they were just
yeah.
literally pumping everything that they had just to keep the content going. So
Yeah.
I remember seeing that a lot, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite things. And I had that on my list of my top 10 when I did Den of 10 for classic Disney.
Right.
And Sam and Ed had never even heard of it. So I was like, guys, I'm like, go on Disney Plus. I said, it's The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, but just watch the second half. You
Yeah.
don't need Wind in the Willows. You just need Ichabod. So they had already made that change to him being like a constable, detective, the forensic
Yeah.
science, all that stuff, but it was more slashery. And then when Tim Burton came on, his whole vision for it, which when I see it now, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, was to make it more like a Hammer movie. And it
Yeah.
is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it is absolutely such a like lovingly dedicated tribute to the Hammer horror movies. It
Oh,
really, like, obviously,
absolutely.
production values through the roof, not like,
Yeah.
not like what those movies were, but just the aesthetic of it, the
Yeah.
costumes, having Christopher Lee in there in that tiny little
Yeah.
part. just having that there and having that be a part of it. It's like I wrote down in my notes like this was mood before the kids were calling it mood. Like that's like this whole movie.
Yeah.
The opening titles of this movie are probably my favorite opening titles of any
Yeah.
movie ever. The journey from New York City to Sleepy Hollow, which makes me, I'm from New York. I know exactly where Sleepy Hollow is. It just makes me laugh that he has this huge, long, horse-drawn journey to something that now takes
Yeah,
like
they
half an
said it
hour
was
by
like a
car.
2-day journey.
It's a
Yeah.
2-day journey, but that's like legit what it was. It's like
Yeah.
half an hour by car now to get there. Like Sleepy Hollow, you can't even get in there and on Halloween
So
now, like
does
the whole month of
I was going to say,
October.
does Sleepy
Yeah,
Hollow still exist as a town?
Sleepy
Yeah,
Hollow is a town. It's
I'm
right
not
next to
surprised.
Tarrytown. Yeah, so I mean, it's like
Terry.
a little Tarrytown. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's right next to there. It's just north of New York City, and they're like the capital of Halloween. Like besides that and Salem is where if you're in the New England tri-state area where I am, those are the two places you want to try to get to in October
Yeah.
because they have parades and everything you can imagine Halloween they do at Sleepy Hollow. It's a big deal. It's so much fun.
That's
So.
it's smart. I mean, it's probably a nightmare, but yeah, it's like
Oh, to live
going to
there? It's like, yeah,
oh yeah, like it's like being one of the Salem, Massachusetts residents and stuff like that. It's like a nightmare to be there during Halloween.
I can't
So,
even imagine. When
oh
I
yeah.
went there for that bachelorette party, you couldn't even walk in the streets. It was like a crush of
Ugh.
people everywhere you went. It was insane.
Oh,
It was
that's
nuts. It was
ridiculous.
fun, but it
Yeah.
was way too many people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can't imagine.
tourist traps. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that the opening titles of this movie, The Journey to Sleepy Hollow,
Yeah.
it has always struck me that when you see the words over the water, that the reflection of the words is in the water, like
Mhm.
the attention to detail,
Yeah.
the way the music goes with it, like it
Oh
is
yeah.
so good. Those opening titles are amazing.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah. And that's where like that perfect what's it called? That perfect Danny Elfman score comes in too. It's
Mm-hmm.
so like and it's not over the top or anything. It's just like it's just really good at evoking the mood
Yes.
so much. It's like it's so in tune with everything that it doesn't clash with the visuals or anything.
Yep.
It doesn't like and that's the thing about a good soundtrack, a good score is that you'll almost not notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kind of works with this one. Is there times where you notice it, but like it's very rare that it just works so well in tandem
Yes.
with the visuals that and that's why I think it's like even better than some of the other stuff where it doesn't stand out because Danny Elfman's scores can be very bombastic and
Mm-hmm.
stuff thinking of the Batman
You think
soundtracks
of
and stuff like
Batman.
that
Yep.
and then like with this I think he is playing it a little bit more understated, he's
Mm-hmm.
trying to go for that kind of Hammer mood,
Yeah.
and then it was funny too because while watching this I thought of the Hammer stuff but I was also very much thinking of Bram Stoker's Dracula as well.
Yes. I
That
thought of that too, because we just
yeah,
talked about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was getting hardcore Bram Stoker's Dracula vibes, and so I think that that's kind of what he was doing. He was like kind of going for that, definitely going for the Hammer vibes, but I think he was
Mm-hmm.
also kind of going, look, 7 years ago in '92, Bram Stoker's Dracula came out, and that worked really well. Let's
That was a
kind of
huge
do
hit.
some, yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
a huge hit, and let's do something kind of in that vein too. And so I was definitely feeling those vibes as well.
Yeah.
So
Me too. Yeah. I was like, okay. Yeah. Having like seeing it in that context, like you got
yeah,
to put everything in order. And then
yeah,
it's like, yeah, totally.
yeah.
Totally.
And I might be wrong, but I think this might have been the first time Burton and Christopher Lee worked together. Um, it's
Um,
a
I kn-
small role, but
he wound up in a whole bunch of his stuff after this, so that's
yeah,
why it's like he would. I
yeah,
think it
because I know
maybe
he
he
was
was
in
just hanging around because he was also about to do Star Wars. I know it was all the same sets,
yeah,
the same soundstage, so maybe that's why I didn't look
could
to
be.
see if this was the first time. I know
Yeah,
that
I
it
didn't
said
either.
he's yeah, I didn't. I know it said he was specifically there as the nod to Hammer
The
Studios.
Hammer, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it
that
was a
I.
great nod.
Mm-hmm. considering he was always so miserable in the Hammer movies. I hope he had fun this one day on set here.
Hey, he must have, because he did go.
'Cause he
He
kept
did
doing
go into
stuff.
work with Tim Burton. Yeah, I think he had. It was so funny too because he definitely did. I did read something about like his career had kind of faltered there for a little bit, and I think this and Star Wars kind of got him back into stuff, and I think these kind of things helped him get the role of Saruman.
Yes.
So it was this kind of 1-2 punch of Star Wars and
Mhm.
working with Tim Burton that helped him come back on the radar a bit, which is great, because Christopher Lee's a badass. I mean,
Totally.
if you look into Christopher Lee, man, you find out like dude was literally the inspiration for James Bond. So
Yeah.
so it's like like it's insane. Like I just watched the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and there is a the Henry Cavill, the guy he plays, this is based on a historical event, and the guy he plays at the end of the movie, they say this is the guy who Ian Fleming based James Bond on, and I'm like, okay, it's in part. I think it's kind of a combination of that guy and Christopher Lee.
Composite
'Cause
sketch.
yeah, because when you
Yeah.
look at Christopher Lee's history, like the dude was a Nazi hunter and a spy, like a
Yeah.
hardcore like spy, and so it's like, yeah, I can believe that,
Mhm.
And they even said, what was it? There was a moment during one of the Lord of the Rings movies where somebody gets stabbed with a knife in the back and makes some kind of sound, and Christopher Lee was like, "That's not what somebody sounds like when they get stabbed in the back." He's like, because I've actually stabbed somebody in the back. It's
And everybody takes a step back, like,
it was,
"Yeah."
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, but yeah, no. So I mean, he's a cool dude. Like that's when you and just being like a hands down like awesome actor on top of that. Like
Yes.
dude definitely had the creep factor going on. So
Mhm. 100%.
yeah. But yeah, no. So he's got like what, maybe a minute of screen time in this movie, but it is a
Yeah.
very good 1 minute of screen time. So
Yes.
yeah,
Super effective.
yeah. And I think it's interesting to pair these movies together because we do get some parallels. He's playing like a judge like character in this one, and then in the next one we've got Alan Rickman playing Judge Turpin.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's this I don't even know what I was gonna say. Did you have more?
Let's see. Well, I also didn't know that Tim Burton, when he was a student as a Disney intern, one of his teachers, did you read this too?
I think so.
That one of his teachers had actually worked as a background animator on Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. So like he got to see that like from the chase, so he got to see that the artwork from that, and you can definitely see in this movie it is
there's several nods
much
to the Adventures of Ichabod,
very much informed by the Disney animation to the thing, because I love the Disney one from my childhood. I also somewhere after several moves in this house, somewhere in this house, I have a very, very, very old copy of Washington Irving's book.
Oh, wow.
So I loved the story, and I was in that like weird, the beginning of the movie, I was enjoying it. I really liked it, but I was still a little annoyed that they were making all these changes. I was kind of enjoying it, but also a little annoyed. And the minute he was on the covered bridge and you heard the frogs making the Ichabod sound, I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm in. I know you've given it the nod. You've appreciated it. I'm totally in now. I'll stop complaining in my head. You've got me. And it's definitely, I've seen this movie so many times. He's definitely got me with this one. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, he's definitely, he threw in those nods because people who are fans of that, that cartoon, all of us who grew up during that 80s
Mhm.
period or earlier, because this thing came out in the 40s.
Came out in the 40s. But
Yeah.
yeah, those early Disney Channel days when when
Yeah.
all those old things were on. Yeah, we all saw it.
Yeah. And so, it was definitely was great because like rewatching it this last time I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
there's definitely the nods, the fake headless horseman in this.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was
Yeah,
just a
Brom
lot.
dressed up.
Brom,
Yep.
yeah.
Throwing the
eh,
pumpkin at him.
yeah,
Yep. All
yeah.
that stuff.
It was so good. It was so fun. But yeah. Yeah, there's Casper Van Dien.
Mm-hmm.
He played Brom. He's he's okay. He's probably
He's
the
fine.
weakest link for me in the
Agreed.
movie, but I think the character's pretty weak. He's definitely one of those just like caricatures of like strong dudes,
Yeah.
and
He's the strong man antagonist, and that's about
yeah,
it.
yeah. He's the what's his name from Beauty and the Beast?
Gaston.
Gaston, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the Gaston, but with less personality, which is,
Yeah.
not saying much because Gaston don't have a lot of personality anyway. So
Mm, Gaston is the scariest Disney villain because you meet Gaston every day.
true, 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 true. Too funny. All right. But yeah, no, he's not bad, but he's so like in and out of the movie that
Yeah.
doesn't matter. He's there to be like the potential love interest of Christina
Katrina.
Ricci, yeah, Katrina, which is funny because it's my daughter's name.
Uh,
Yeah. So it's like so every time they're like Katrina, I'm like, what? Oh.
like, hello.
But
And even then, he's gone. And then, he's
yeah.
like, oh, poor Brom. And she's like, I've shed my tears for him. She's over
Yeah,
it. She was over it in like 30 seconds.
yeah.
She's so done. She's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I never loved him. And I mean, to be fair, I mean, it was probably a marriage of like, an arranged marriage type situation anyway, that,
Most likely.
she wasn't
Yeah.
in love with him to begin with,
No.
But yeah, no, speaking of Christina Ricci, she's beautiful in this. She's like,
Yes.
she got the weird blonde hair. Like I don't like her blonde. It just looks weird to me.
Yeah.
But she pulls it off well.
She does better than poor Joanna and Sweeney Todd, but we'll get into that too.
Yes.
The Tim Burton blondes with the blonde eyebrows.
Yes. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting too, is like paralleling these movies, like watching them together. Again, it's one of those odd circumstances where you put two movies together, not intending to put together a really good
Mhm.
double feature, and then they end up pairing so well and paralleling in so many different ways.
Yep.
It's definitely a lot of fun. This is definitely a highly recommended double feature. So
Mhm.
now going back into it, I said before that these were his two darkest and kind of scariest movies.
Yeah.
They are and they aren't. This one specifically is a little less. I think it's still PG-13.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm not sure about Sweeney Todd. I believe that's got to be
I
an
think
R.
it's an R. It has to be.
It has to be because that one's brutal.
It is brutal. It's bad.
But it's what, let me see. I'm trying to think. But yeah, he did pull back on it. I did see that for Sleepy Hollow, he did pull back on a lot of the goriness of it, because he didn't want it to be too bloody.
Yeah, I think he wanted it to be more accessible to a wider audience, and it is. I mean, I watch this with my kids. Like, yeah, it's icky, and that the scythe is swinging and people's heads are coming off, but
yeah,
it's manageable. It's like manageable scary.
Well,
I mean,
and
because I'm a baby, and if I can do it, then like anybody can. Like the blood in his Johnny Depp's face is fully for comic relief.
Oh, it's fully comic relief. Yeah.
All that stuff is funny. Like
interesting. Sleepy Hollow was an R rating as well.
It was R.
So it's just enough. I guess it's enough of the blood.
Probably.
But it is interesting. But it is interesting too, because, and I guess it's the practical effects when the heads are off and everything like that. And he's zooming in and everything. I can kind of see where that's gonna gross people out the gore aspect of that. But when he chops off the heads, they make a point of saying like the there's not much blood because
No, the
the
wound is
wounds have been
cauterized.
cauterized. The blade
Mm-hmm.
is so hot that it's
Yeah.
instantly cauterizing the wound. And so it is so I was actually surprised that it was rated R because they made it so bloodless.
I
There
bet
are
it's
times where there are times where it is, but yeah, go ahead.
I bet it's R because they kill the kid. That's another. That
That's
was my
true.
that was my
Yeah.
another favorite. My two favorite stories from when this first came out was that he was the one shooting all the blood, and also they said, "Well, you're gonna let the kid live, right?" And he was like,
He's like,
"Nah, fuck the
no.
kid."
Yeah.
That's what he. That was his quote. Nah, fuck the kid. Like you don't see it. You don't see him kill the kid,
No.
but you see him pushing the head into the. You know he's got three
Yeah.
heads in the bag, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, he killed that kid."
Yeah. Well, and that's something I did read about too, because he had seen so many instances where the kid lived.
Yep.
The kid got away from something. And then I did see that there was an argument about that because the likelihood would have been that because uh uh the Hessian was under the control of somebody else, the kid
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have been a target at all, and so should have gotten away. But again, I think there was also the aspect of the because the kid saw and because
The
the
kid
kid was
overheard
there.
it.
Yeah, and so
The kid, she
the
said for sure when,
yeah,
well, not full spoilers, full spoilers.
yeah,
At
yeah,
the end, when Miranda Richardson is like laying it all out. By the way, like Miranda Richardson is by far in the movie that is cast unbelievably well, the
yeah,
best performance in this whole damn movie. She is so good. Okay.
yeah.
So when she's laying it all out at the end, she says straight out, oh, she told me that the widow was pregnant, and she told me this right in front of her husband and son. What a
Hmm.
goose. Like,
Yeah. So that
she,
makes sense. Yeah. So
doesn't
that makes
matter
sense.
if it was, yeah, doesn't matter if
Yeah.
it was a kid.
Yeah.
She was
Oh,
psycho and
that
she was
lady was
killing
pure psycho.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely everybody that heard anything about what she
She
was doing.
killed
She
her
wanted,
own twin sister. I mean,
yep.
you think she's not going to spare a kid, or you think she's going to spare a kid over that?
Oh
No
my
way.
God. My sister, by the way, passed away very
Yeah.
recently. Like, every, she's
Yeah.
so good in this movie.
Yeah.
That part too. That part's terrifying. I don't watch a lot of that. When you go to see the witch in the woods, that part's really scary.
Yeah.
That and the tree of the dead, the tree of the dead, the best design of the whole
Oh,
movie. Oh my
that's
God.
that's
And
really
then
good.
oh,
Yeah.
and the music is swelling and the roots are separating and all the heads are there and then the
Yeah.
horse comes out. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Please see this movie if you haven't seen this movie.
Yes. Yeah. Please see this movie, especially if you love
God.
Hammer horror. Like it just
Yes.
definitely has those vibes for sure. But yeah, no, and going back to Christina Ricci, like,
Mm-hmm.
any of us who'd been watching stuff in the 90s, because like I said,
Yep.
she was 18 in
Mm-hmm.
99.
Yep.
And she'd grown up basically, in the movies. They had previously, Johnny Depp and her had previously, they hadn't been in a movie. Johnny Depp was actually dating Winona Ryder during
Yes.
the filming of what was it, Mermaids?
Mermaids?
I
Mermaids,
think it was
yeah.
Mermaids. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
she was in
was
that.
Christina Ricci, Winona Ryder, and Cher. And they so at the time Christina Ricci was playing Winona Ryder's sister
Mm-hmm.
and she was 9 at the time. I guess it was 1990 when it
Mm-hmm.
came out. So yeah, so they'd known each other for a while. And he was uncomfortable. It does say that he was uncomfortable playing her love interest in the movie. And I don't think there's anything really like there's nothing. I don't even know if they actually share a kiss. They might. I may have glossed over that.
It's
Um,
very tame.
yeah, exactly. So
It's
I think they
very
very
chaste. Like
yeah.
everything in it is very like old
Yeah.
fashioned.
And
Like
I think
there's
that's partially
nothing.
just because he was uncomfortable too, and so that's,
Could be.
good on him, so, um, especially, you know, because I don't think there's been anything that we've like heard. Like he might not be the greatest guy, but I haven't heard of him being like,
No,
gross or anything like that. So that's the good
no.
thing.
And
Um,
from what I know, like I think it was all very recent. I know his ex-wife or ex-partner, I can't remember if they were married. The daughter's mother had always said like
yeah,
he was always the kindest, nicest,
yeah,
most wonderful. Like he never did it, So
yeah,
I think what the recent ish issues are a new
It probably
development.
just I want,
It
and they may be
yeah.
directly related. I think that was a very
Yes.
bad relationship. We're not going to get fully into this and everything like
Let's
that,
not,
but I
but
think
it was toxic
it was
on
a
a lot
very
of levels.
toxic
Yeah.
relationship between the both of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely wasn't something, and it made them both look bad in the end.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yes.
so, and I'm not taking sides on either side because I think they were both terrible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, but um, but yeah, I'm I'm less like I've never been a huge Depp fan anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been a very movie to movie specific thing. I've never seen all of the Jack Sparrow movies. I've never, it's just I've seen a couple of them. He's just one of those actors where depending on the movie I'll watch him.
Yeah.
I think his collaborations with Burton were hit and miss too.
Yeah.
We got very high highs with Edward Scissorhands and this and Ed Wood.
Ed Wood.
And then
Yeah.
you got very low lows with Dark Shadows and you know and I still don't think Charlie and Chocolate Factory is that bad. But I can see people's issues with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
um,
I think that was at the point where it was like maybe you two need to take a break from each other.
yeah.
And then after Dark Shadows, it was no, but really, you guys need a timeout.
And
Like you need
they
to,
have, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Dark Shadows
good
was the last
Lord.
thing they did. So
Mm-hmm.
which I think benefited them both, really. I mean, as because there's people, and I think that it's one of those things where because Johnny Depp was always the lead,
Yeah.
if he had been maybe a supporting actor in some of these movies, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. Because if you watch other people who have other people do this too, like other directors, and
Mm-hmm.
like people will bitch all the time about like so and so always uses the same actor. Yeah, but this
Yes.
other director you do like really uses the same actors too. Like
Right.
so somebody like Tarantino or Kevin Smith or Martin
Christopher
Scorsese,
Nolan.
Christopher Nolan, they all use
Mm-hmm.
the same director or same actors. I was just looking at Guy Ritchie,
Yep.
Guy Ritchie, because like I said, just watched The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. He uses a lot of the same actors. Like he doesn't use them ad nauseum though,
Mm-hmm.
and which I think is good. And he kind of cycles them out as leads slash
Yes.
supporting actors. And I think that's the best way to do it is if you can kind of rotate them around so no one's
Mm-hmm.
ever always the lead. And I think
Yep.
that was the big issue with Johnny Depp and Tim Burton is that he was always the lead, and it got to the point where they were it almost felt like they were just giggling with each other. Like, what could
Yeah.
we do to make this weirder?
And no one was
And
telling them no.
no, and no one could tell them no. Who are
No.
you to tell Tim Burton and Johnny Depp no?
Yeah.
Um, but that was the thing too, is like some people, just don't know when to rein it back
Yeah.
with each other,
Mm-hmm.
because they're having too much fun. And don't get me wrong, sometimes that can do great things, but sometimes not. Sometimes it just goes a little off the rails.
No.
And they're not the only ones for sure. But I think Martin Scorsese's gotten to a point where he's used Leo a little too much.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
find somebody else, like,
Yeah.
give
It's
somebody
like
else a
there's
chance.
no shortage of people who want to work
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah,
Just
right.
please.
Him and Robert De Niro, like give somebody else a chance. I mean, I don't think Martin Scorsese got that many more movies in him, but
You never know.
who knows? What's his name?
Ridley Scott. Oh
No,
my God.
Clint Eastwood is
Oh, yeah.
94 and just finished directing a movie. I'm like, why are you like, who is making him direct movies?
God.
Like it,
please
yeah,
just rest.
yeah.
Please just
Um,
rest.
right? Like I don't like as sad as it is, like whenever I hear that somebody like retires when they're older, like Sean
Mhm.
Connery or Gene Hackman or
Gene
whatever.
Hackman. Yeah.
And they went out on high notes and everything. Well, Sean Connery not so much because his last movie was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which by the way I still like, so people can suck it. Um but Gene Hackman retired and he's puttering around writing books and everything.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Resting.
Yeah, resting, doing his thing, you know.
Rest,
Yeah.
please.
So like I as much as I'm like, oh man, it'd be great to have gotten some more movies by them. I'm also at the same point where I'm just like, nah, let them
Yeah,
relax and everything like that. Because sometimes you get some of these really old guys who just keep working, and you're just like, you guys gotta stop, man. Um.
yes.
So anyway, but then again, you get somebody like Christopher Lee who's still doing top notch work at the
Did
end.
everything. Yeah, all the way to the end. Yeah,
So, so I'm not going to say everybody has to stop because they don't,
that's true.
you know, because if you still got the talent, you still got the talent. So,
Yeah.
um, but uh, that being said, we'll get back to Sleepy Hollow again.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, Christina Ricci's great in this movie.
Hmm.
She's I don't think she's always had that talent. And I think she does it well in this.
Yeah.
She's really good. And I don't think she's given a lot. That was my only issue with it. I felt like it was kind of a lackluster role at times. When she was on, she was on. And when she was given enough material to work with, it was really good. I just felt like it was almost, and again, to compare it to Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Hmm.
it's almost similar to what Winona Ryder's doing as Mina.
Yeah.
Not fully, but just a little bit. And like I said, I just don't think the material was there for her. Because it
No.
was Johnny Depp's show for sure.
Absolutely. She's like a prop in this. She's
Yeah.
like she's the gothic damsel in distress. And for
Right.
like what she has to do, she's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, a lot of what you would kind of expect in kind of a more modern movie
Mm-hmm.
from a partner in the plot and a sidekick is given to young Masbeth. Like that
Yeah.
kid gets more of the if this was a more
Yeah.
modern thing, like when they did the modern Sleepy Hollow show with
Yeah. Yeah.
the when they did that, it was the man and the woman doing stuff. But I
Yeah.
feel like in this movie, and it's an engaging plot line, and that kid is great. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I always
Again,
need to
more
look up.
parallels with Sweeney Todd.
Yes, yes, yes. But he's great. He's very fun. He gives
Yeah.
you those moments where you can like crack a joke and
Yeah.
like get rid of a little bit of the tension, but is
Yeah.
also like great. And that they when they go out on their own, the three of them, you can kind of see,
Yeah.
okay, a lot of the things she could have had in a different kind of plot
Yeah.
structure, the kid has.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. The
that's
kid, as
why
much
it
as the
seems
kid was,
split.
yeah. Yeah. And I think as much as the kid was great and everything like that, take the kid out, give those lines and stuff to her. And I
Hmm.
think it would have been a much smoother and would have given her some more beefier things to do for
Yes,
sure.
but by the time they're unraveling the mystery and they want you
Yeah.
to think that it's Baltus, her father,
Yeah.
she needs to find that paper and get mad
Yeah.
because she thinks that they're after her dad. And then the
Yeah.
whole thing in the church scene, amazing. But,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
witchy stuff, like it is at its core an engaging and interesting mystery, and in a mystery in the
Yes.
way that you can watch it back over and over and over again, as I have done, and it definitely makes sense. You can see the clues if you're
Hmm.
paying attention. You can follow it all the way through. They don't cheat it.
Yeah.
Like it is a extraordinarily well put together mystery with a
Right.
human villain at the end. Yes,
Right.
she is controlling a vengeful spirit
Right.
who is the one actually doing the dirty work.
Right.
But if you are watching this and paying
Right.
attention, you can figure out the mystery.
Right. And it definitely has that and it's definitely a mystery. It's definitely there's something going on. There's all the red herrings. Because
Yep.
when he comes into the room with all the leaders of the town and everything like that, you think they're all conspiring together. Like
Yeah.
that's your immediate thought is they're all on it. They're all controlling them. They're taking out the dude. And then as it goes along, you're like you are thinking that one of them is taking out the others.
Yep.
And and that's where it leads to, and then you're like, aha, I see where, no, wait, it's going someplace else. And I
Yeah.
like that. I like that there was a nice, neat little twist there that it wasn't that after all. And so,
Yep.
and then, then you get the reveal of everything that, was there. And I like that, this kid, this guy, Ichabod, who is very
Mm-hmm.
much rooted in science and everything. You get this past too. You get these
Oh,
flashbacks to him and his mother,
yeah.
played by Lisa Marie,
The
who was,
gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous Lisa Marie.
yeah, who was Tim Burton's girlfriend at the time, because he's very much a let me put my girlfriend into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he has a new girlfriend slash wife, they are in all of the movies. Um,
Yep.
because next up we
Moving
get,
on soon, but
yeah,
yes.
moving on soon, and moving on again too in the new Beetlejuice.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, he's but no, it's great. It's very like I don't think there's much dialogue, if any, in these sequences when
There
he's
isn't.
kind of
Just the
remembering
singing.
things. Yeah. And so you get this sequence of how you see that his mother was using magic. She was a
Mm-hmm.
witch also, and was using what I read in there was benign magic. More of what we have now come to recognize, that probably what most quote unquote witches of the time were doing were more, they were just using, out of the box methods
Yes.
to
Like
to do
healing
things
methods and
like healing
things. Yeah.
methods and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and which was construed as witchcraft.
Yes.
And it was the weird women that lived out on the edge of town and whatever. um but yeah, so and then we see that some you know pious dude caught her performing magic, and
Yeah,
um
his own father. Good
oh, was
job.
it? Okay.
It's his dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Why they were
missed
together,
that.
who knows? But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's his
And
own
again,
dad.
weird parallels with this in the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Oh,
so, but they're great sequences. It's good to see, like, and so, as he's going along with this, and he's being, confronted by magic and the supernatural and
yeah.
everything, and he's trying to dismiss it. But these waves of memories keep happening to him, and he's remembering his mom, and he's remembering the magic and everything. And, and so it's like, it's all clashing against his now, like, because obviously, the dad, did what he did to the mom, and
Yep.
um and basically the child rejected any magic and everything, probably because of the father.
Mm-hmm.
And um and it's interesting to see that that he rejected it, and then in the end he has to learn how to accept the magic as well,
Yeah.
both the good and the bad, because
Mm-hmm.
we've got Miranda Richardson's character utilizing magic for evil purposes, but
Yep.
Katrina is using them for good reasons,
For protection.
even
Yep.
though he doesn't realize it at the time. He's like, oh my god, the evil eye under my bed, she's trying to hurt me, blah blah blah, and it's actually a protection symbol.
It's a protection spell. Yeah.
Yeah.
With
And
the
so,
stupid spider that I can't watch. Oh,
yes, I know.
that
Oy,
giant spider.
yeah, no, there's like two horror movies out right now that are both spider based, and I'm like, I am not watching those. I don't care how
No.
good they are. Like, there's one that's now on Shudder called Infested, and which
Ugh.
is a horrible
Even
fucking
just
title.
the title.
I
Oh my
know.
God. Ugh.
Yuck. So, and then the director of that is going to be directing one of the Evil Dead movies,
Oh
one of the
boy.
newer upcoming. And I'm like, look, I want to watch your movie, but I don't, but I'm not going to, because I'm just going to watch your Evil Dead movie when it comes out. Please don't have spiders in it.
No spiders. Please, no spiders.
Yeah, no, I've like, no, I have pretty good, bad, or whatever arachnophobia. So
Arachnophobia.
nope,
Yep.
nope.
Me
So,
too.
yeah. So this one didn't bother me so much because it's barely on screen. And I'm like, okay,
It's barely
I can
there, but
handle that though.
Ugh, I
Yeah.
just don't look.
And it was a late edition too, from what I read too. It's like they added like there were bugs and spiders and stuff like that just getting into the sets, and
Oh, well,
they were just like, okay, well, let's add, or maybe it was like they had somebody there to wrangle bugs and stuff, and they're like, let's just add this spider
yeah.
just to make it more interesting. I was like,
I mean,
no,
it
could we
does
please?
hammer home the Ichabod making the kid do
Uh,
stuff joke
yeah,
that
yeah.
continues throughout
No,
the
it
movie.
does. It's
Yeah.
great because it's a great sequence with him. Because I would have been the same, like, oh
It would have
no,
been like,
no,
no, you get it.
especially a spider that big. No,
Uh-uh.
no, I can handle small spiders, and the big ones, no, no, no. If I can
Gosh.
step on it, I'm good. If it's big and looks
If
like
it's
it'll
that
throw
big,
me,
no. No, 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 no. I
yeah,
don't even like the small ones.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't like any of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I can handle killing one.
Hmm.
But anyway, we went on a whole 3 minute
Like,
tangent about spiders.
and about the spider.
Yeah. But yeah, so uh yeah, so I found that fascinating, that aspect of it fascinating, that he had to reject the magic that he had, fallen in love with, because of his mom, and actually had that little spinner thing that she had done, which was a form
Yeah.
of, again, a form of magic,
Yeah.
sleight of hand.
Yep.
And so, while he rejected, he was also still, practicing it himself in a way.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
because he took it to the science root of
yeah,
it. Is that
exactly.
there's nothing mystical about this. I can take
Right.
this and
Yeah.
show you like the proof and the reason of it, which is
Yeah.
his whole character
Right.
is in that. And which
And
is it is a way of magic. It's just that he
yeah,
had to take it in a different direction.
right. And that is, getting back into, his squeamishness and his,
Hmm.
that is a great aspect of this character as well. Like
Yes.
it's a part of the Ichabod character itself, but it's put on in such a fun way in this, especially because he's supposed to be this forensic scientist who really is all about the science and everything like that, but it squicks him out so
Yes.
bad. Like it's just like, and he's got these cool little, like, this uh rig that he puts on over his eyes that
The
can
glasses.
telescope,
Yeah.
yeah, and he can telescope in on the wounds, and he's like, and he has to swallow because he's like, oh god, it's so
Ugh.
gross, but he does it, and but he faints multiple times in this movie, and I read
Yes.
that, like, Tim Burton calls him one of the greatest fainters in movies,
He does.
and
He is a
he
good
does,
painter.
he's so good at it, it's so funny. But yeah, and I think that's what makes it fun for me, is just like it's a very, it handles all the tones just right in terms of
Yep.
being a this is more of a, it's a horror comedy, but not in that same, where I would say like an Evil Dead or like a Tucker and Dale versus Evil, where it's
Hmm.
intentionally funny in so many ways. It's more this horror with comedic elements.
Yes.
So it does make it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you have in your notes about this one?
I feel like we've hit pretty much everything, especially since like we both love this movie. So it's like,
Yes, yeah,
two very high thumbs up. But
yes.
one thing I've always loved about this movie is like what kind of gasoline slash explosives slash fireworks were inside that windmill for it to go off the way.
Okay, so they actually, I was reading
Did they
the
explain
things
this?
on this.
Because I
Yes.
have always laughed at this.
So
I'm like, what is in this windmill?
old flour like that is actually more flammable than gasoline.
Oh,
So because it
got
was
it.
like an
Okay.
old flour mill and stuff like that, he just needed it's basically a huge accelerant. So
So it
it
just
actually
needed that
made
spark.
sense. Yeah, it
Okay.
just needed the spark. Yeah. So
Oh,
I was like, I was like, okay, yeah, that's really weird. Why would it explode that bad? But
yeah.
yeah, no, the science behind it is solid. So
That's funny that the science
yeah,
is solid. So that's like
yeah.
15 years of me making fun of that scene. So now I have to stop, but okay. Oh my God.
That's, yeah. See, you come on the show, you learn some stuff.
I learned some stuff. Yeah. I mean, besides, we can shout out Colleen Atwood, who won a BAFTA for the costume design, the costumes, as
Yes.
we've
Oh
said,
my
the
God.
costumes, the production design, the physical sets, the
Yeah,
like everything
they
in
built
this,
the town. Yeah.
yes, the like physical and real and tangible parts of this movie are
Yeah.
just unreal. And I didn't know that Tom Stoppard, who's a pretty famous playwright, actually did
Hmm.
some uncredited rewrites on
Yeah.
this.
for
which
the
is awesome.
jokes, for like
Which
the
is
funny bits.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
but it
yeah,
it worked and it makes sense
yeah,
because it makes sense because it's a movie, but it does have that very like chamber
hmm,
theatrical
yeah,
feel to it. So it makes sense that a playwright could punch it up and
right,
pull it all together like that. But it's
right,
odd that he's uncredited because
yeah,
he's not nobody. He's a pretty
right.
prolific playwright.
I'm
So
surprised they didn't give him some kind of credit. Like maybe at the end is like a special thanks to Tom Stoppard or something like that
yeah,
we didn't catch. But yeah, I think that yeah, I think it's one of those WGA rules that unless you
yeah,
have
that's what it
contributed
said.
a significant amount of
Mm-hmm.
material to the script, you're not going
Probably
to get a
wasn't
credit.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's just one of those things because like I know other people like Tarantino and other people have done uncredited rewrites on movies even after
Yeah.
they were famous. They did these uncredited rewrites on things because it was a little bit but not enough to like get their name on the
Mm-hmm.
on the screen. So
And sometimes people do it as favors for friends and stuff like
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But yeah, I think that was
all right.
everything. I loved this movie.
Ah, me too. Like it's just like I said, it's if anybody ever just goes, what should I watch that's a Tim Burton movie? I would 100%.
Yeah,
This would be the
this is the
first thing I
one.
would say. Yeah, this, and I think I'd probably like this is my like I would say top five, not ranked of his movies would be this one, Batman Returns, um, uh, probably Edward Scissorhands,
Yes.
um, uh,
When my daughter
probably
was little, she said
probably
Edward Scissorhands
Beetlejuice.
made the snow.
That's
She
cute.
loved Edward Scissorhands when she was little.
Um, and then Edward Scissorhands
Yeah,
and
Beetlejuice for sure. Beetlejuice
oh yeah,
is
Beetlejuice,
great.
Beetlejuice,
Yep.
Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, this one, and I'm trying to think of another one that I would really
Like
put up there. Like
Ed Wood is niche, but I love
yeah,
Ed Wood. I think it's
Ed Wood is
so
fun,
good.
but yeah, it's very niche. And it's one that I haven't seen in a long time. Let
Martin
me
Landau is so good in
Oh
it.
yeah, and speaking of him, he was actually in
And
the opening sequence of this movie too. So
yes,
it's
yes.
yeah,
Again, he's not uncredited either. He is uncredited.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
a cameo. Hmm.
Let me look at this. And I guess Sweeney Todd, I would recommend as in the top five for sure. So
Yes.
um, but yeah, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Sleepy Hollow.
Hmm.
So I mean, as I'm saying this, you can obviously tell the era of Tim Burton that was probably the best was everything up to 99. Everything since has been good, but
Yeah.
not in that same. It's one of those things where he's kind of lost a little bit of luster. He still makes
Hmm.
interesting things, but so much of what he's made, um, and honestly, I mean, most of what he's made throughout his career has actually been adaptations of a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So I mean, like looking at all this now, I was like thinking that a lot of it post 2000 was that, but actually a lot of his stuff, because Sleepy Hollow, Mars Attacks, the
Hmm.
Batman movies, all
Hmm.
those are basically based on other people's creations.
Yeah, existing
So
material.
yeah, I mean, even Pee Wee's Big Adventure was not his originally.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so it's interesting, and I mean, Big Fish and
Hmm.
Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows, Miss Peregrine's,
Yeah.
Dumbo, all of those are, he's a very good adapter. Um,
Yes.
so Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all of those, Planet of the
Hmm.
Apes, all of that stuff. It's so funny just like looking at all that. It's like how much he has done. It's just adaptation.
From
So,
the
but
imagination of Tim Burton.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so let's go ahead and transition into a Sweeney Todd.
Let's do
Speaking of playwrights,
it.
this one is based
Hmm.
on the Broadway musical Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street.
Yep.
Um, and that's the full title of it as well. It's not
Sweeney Todd, the
um
Demon Barber of Fleet Street.
Stephen Sondheim.
Stephen Sondheim and Hugh
Um,
Wheeler.
they this is more in your wheelhouse because you are
Sure
a
is.
theater manager. You do plenty of musicals. I'm sure
Uh-huh.
you've done a Sweeney Todd here and there.
I sure have. I sure have. It's
Um,
probably one of the coolest sets we've ever had.
now
I was the first person to take a ride in the chair.
now good. Now I'm going to admit the first exposure to Sweeney Todd that I ever had was in the Kevin Smith movie Jersey Girl,
Yes, yes,
which they do a very good adaptation of,
yes, they do.
um, which is very funny. If and here's the thing, I know people kind of like shit on Jersey Girl as a movie. It is a really good movie, and
Hmm.
when like seeing it later on, I watched it during my series on Kevin Smith that I did early in this podcast's life. That that thing made me cry so much,
Yeah.
just because being a father, um, and everything just is. It's one of those things where you see it, and I was a young father when it originally came out, but it didn't hit me as much as it did later on, being an older father now, and just being like,
Yeah.
man, that just it's so like, oh man, his like anybody who tries to dismiss Kevin Smith as just his, dick and fart jokes guy, like,
Yeah.
yes, he is that, but
Hmm.
dude has an emotional core to most of his movies that just hits you in the gut. So,
Aw. You gotta talk to
so
Andy from Frame to Frame. He is a big defender.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so this movie, full on musical. I
Yep.
will admit I am not a musical person. It is very hard to get me to watch a musical.
Hmm.
I have to basically just kind of like I've got to be with the story in general. Um, and from what I understand, none of the actors in this movie had ever sung before, or had very little singing experience. Um,
They were all they had a limited singing experience.
right.
Alan Rickman, strangely enough, had come into my rehearsal studio in New York way before this movie to
Interesting.
actually take vocal lessons for another project that he was working on.
Interesting.
So I don't think that any of them, like, I mean, Helena Bonham Carter, like, was not known as a singer. I know
No.
all of them had to take,
Oh yeah.
had to do vocal work. Johnny Depp's in a band, so like he at least had.
But
Even then,
even
I
then,
think he just played the
he did.
guitar. I don't think he
Yeah.
sang.
Well, and
Yeah.
even then, it did in the notes for this, it did say he did have to work with a vocal coach to get to where he is. Now, I will say, having watched the movie, Johnny Depp was the best singer in the whole group.
Yes,
Like
he is not singing Sweeney though. If you see it on
interesting,
stage, it is usually performed by someone who has like operatic chops, pretty much. It is
interesting.
a very difficult vocal part. What he does is great. I want to be
Yeah,
clear and say that what he does in this
yeah,
is great. But if people see this and then expect this on stage, it's
yeah,
not. It
yeah.
is it is a musical and it has like a very big overdramatic Broadway heart, but it's closer
Right.
to an opera than a musical.
I can 100% see that based on
Yes.
just the storyline itself. Yeah, I can see it being, very
Yeah.
big. Because I mean, you get into the and it's the part that I know best from Jersey Girl, but it's the
Hmm.
part where the kid Toby's singing about after they've reopened Miss Levitt's
Hmm.
to everybody. That very much is like it just it screams just Broadway musical, like and
Oh,
very operatic and stuff.
when everybody's in the shop and
Yeah,
people
the
are going
God
up to
That's Good,
Sweeney's
I
shop.
think.
God, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's the opening of Act Two in the
yeah.
musical. So yeah,
So
it has that
yeah,
very big, huge, bombastic. And that's one of the few
yeah,
times that the ensemble is represented in the movie.
yeah,
They cut out almost all the ensemble
yeah,
parts, and I
yeah,
understand why. Like
yeah.
also I want to be clear. Like I love Sweeney Todd. I've loved it forever. Every theater kid goes through like their creepy gothic I love Sweeney Todd phase. It's just
Or
what we
Phantom.
Oh God. Yes, Phantom was my first Broadway show. I was obsessed. So,
Yeah,
yes, like every theater kid goes through that. Like, and we all think this is like the coolest thing ever, but
yeah.
it like I really enjoy this movie as an adaptation
Yeah.
of the show. You're not going to get,
You're not going to
you're
get the
not going to
play. You're not.
get the play.
Yeah.
No. You're
Yeah.
and what they did gets the story across and gets it
Right. Well, it
on
felt
the
like
screen in a way that would, people can follow along.
Yeah, and having read into it a bit and everything, it makes sense in what they took out, the things they took out, like all the ensemble
Yes.
stuff, the kind of stuff that went into like the apparently the opening song is kind of the story about
It's
um
the whole story.
like the
Yeah.
overall story of it. And it's like, well, let's
Yes.
not tell everybody the whole thing and let's cut that out. And that makes a lot of sense, so it's very much what they cut out was the the extra stuff that they could cut out. They kept all the stuff they
Yes.
needed and to get the point across without taking out too much. And it seems like it works. I know that like they've cut one of the major things that they did cut that definitely is the only thing that does feel cut is
Hmm.
the stuff with Joanna
And
uh
Anthony,
and
yeah,
Anthony.
they
Um
cut it way back. They have more
yeah,
songs in the show.
right.
It's not as
Because it's a
exciting. So
love
I
story that's supposed to like build and everything like that. And so I'm assuming I might be wrong, but
yes,
I'm
but
assuming the love story
their
doesn't happen as fast in the original.
songs are boring. It's okay. That's the
Well,
boring
and I think
part.
that's probably why they cut it too, is because
I
he was
know
probably
that's why
like,
they cut
yeah, he was like,
the
these songs probably
original.
don't work that
The
well.
original cast in 1979, Victor Garber was Anthony.
Interesting,
Victor Garber was the first Anthony. Yeah.
funny.
If you go listen to the original Broadway cast, that's him and his glorious boyish tenor singing all these high songs.
Too funny.
Yep.
Yeah. I met him once, briefly, very briefly.
Oh, he's
Um,
so nice.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
such
no,
a
he was
sweet
very,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I knew I knew a guy who would work with him um as like at conventions he would be his table
Mm,
person.
mm-hmm.
Um he did say he was a lot to handle at times. So
I,
but I mean, it's
everyone
older
is.
Victor Garber,
Yes.
and but it's like, hey, whatever, man. Um I love Victor Garber. I've loved him since
Yes.
Alias. Um
Yes. Well, he
and
was a theater kid first,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And again, I don't know much about that world, so
That's why
um,
I'm here.
exactly. But yeah, no, this I think it's an interesting movie because it's take outside of the so here's what I will say.
Mm.
I think this would be a fantastic movie that wasn't a musical. Like if you stripped all the music out and you made it just the movie itself and you gave it just the story, I think it would be a really interesting story itself.
Well, it has
I
been
don't,
since the
yeah,
1800s. Like,
right. And I'm
yeah,
just saying, like, you don't have to have it be like, well, and I don't know the whole history of it.
the
Obviously, the musical is based on another story.
oh gosh, yeah.
Okay.
Sweeney Todd, the character originated in the Victorian times. So
Okay.
in Sweeney's present day is when the character was created, and it was created
Okay.
for like penny dreadfuls and
Right,
things
right.
like that. And it didn't have all the backstory. It didn't have
And obviously
Lucy
wasn't
or
musical, so
Joanna. It
yeah.
wasn't a musical. No. So
Okay.
it was in penny dreadfuls and things like
Okay.
that.
So interesting. So that
And
somebody could adapt a version of it that was not musical.
oh, absolutely. There's thousands of them.
Okay.
There's Sweeney Todds everywhere. So the version that Sondheim and Hugh Wheeler adapted for the musical was from a 1970 play that
Hmm.
gave Sweeney this backstory, gave him
Ah,
the
okay.
Lucy backstory, Joanna and Judge Turpin and all of that. And then they made that into the musical in 1979.
Interesting. All right.
So instead of it just being like a crazy guy who killed you when he was shaving you, and then his neighbor baked you into a pie, instead of it just being like, which at the time was very like Industrial Revolution, eat the rich, kind of like that kind of feeling of
Yeah.
it. But this made him a character of vengeance, a character of revenge, someone who is
Yeah.
just like, all of London might be consuming the pies, but Sweeney is consumed by his desire for revenge, his need for revenge for the wrong
Yeah.
that has been done to him. And he
Right.
can't think of anything else, or
Yeah.
it is just the absolute consumption of his soul by this need
Right.
to avenge
Well, and
what's happened to him.
he's his own downfall in the end too.
Yeah.
Like everything that he wanted, he basically destroys himself through
Yes.
his actions.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting too, is like that inherent like desire for that revenge because it was all consuming and he couldn't see past that, that
Yep.
he couldn't literally see certain things that were right in front of
Right
his
in front of
face
his
the whole
face.
time,
Yeah.
and so until it was too late.
Yeah.
um and so and we'll get to that because that's
Mm-hmm.
we're very much talking about a particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
um and but yeah, it's that's the interesting thing about the movie too, is that like Miss Lovett is trying to get him to come back from that, like take
Yes.
don't feed into that revenge, like please come back from that, I can make you happy,
Yes.
like we don't have to. And it's several moments she's trying to do that,
Mm-hmm.
she tries to pull him back from the edge and he keeps walking that razor's edge.
Yeah.
And because he cannot see anything. And don't get me wrong, I can fully understand where he's coming from. He was fully, because the story is that he's got this wife and child, and this judge covets the wife so much that he basically like throws the husband in jail for 15 years, takes the wife, takes the child, and tries to make them his own. And then after those 15 years, this guy comes back and under this new name and with revenge in his heart, and hears that
Mm-hmm.
his wife has died and that his child is being held captive by this judge now. And it's a I can see from that perspective of just like, well, I'm going to do everything I can to
Yeah.
save my daughter and to kill this judge who destroyed my family and everything. And so um it's just, yeah, but that all-consuming revenge
Mm-hmm.
blinded him to things that he should have seen.
Yeah.
And so, and then yeah, and then it's just that it's an interesting movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. I Like I said, it's probably my top five, but it's kind of a tenuous top five with it being in there. I could easily swap out something else like um um Pee-wee's Big Adventure for it and stuff like that,
Yeah.
depending on my mood. Mostly
Right.
again because I'm not a huge musical person. So, but like if I were to try to suggest things to people, these would be the movies I would suggest. So
Yeah. I mean, it's accessible for sure. And I mean, there's a
yeah.
reason why it gets revived on Broadway and in
Hmm.
London and everywhere all
Yeah.
the time. It's a story that people love, that
Yeah.
people enjoy to see, and that actors want to do. They want to be a part of things like this. So
Yeah.
it's a story that will keep being told. So from that instance, it's a good movie for somebody to watch. But yeah, they need to know what they're walking into, which was
Yeah.
which was there was a lot of, I didn't know this was a musical when this came out. There was a lot of like people walking out. I read that people actually like complained to the Better Business Bureau, like they didn't advertise this as a musical. Now we're so
Yeah.
used to it. Now,
Well, they're doing
now
it all the time.
they
Well,
did it with
it's
Mean Girls. Nobody
yeah,
knew
they
Mean.
did, which is weird to me too, though. Like, I guess the general public does like, because I am a movie person.
Mm-hmm.
I know about movies, so I know
Yeah.
that when there's a Mean Girls, I knew before the first trailer dropped that there was a Mean Girls musical movie coming out, and
Yes.
so whenever I watch the trailers, I could see the bits of musical in there, and so I was like, how could people not see this? But then trying like watching it later, I was like, okay, I can kind of understand where maybe some people didn't grab it
Yeah.
because it doesn't say anywhere that it's musical. But and so I do understand, I guess, maybe from a general public point of view, that if you're not advertising as musical and you go into it and you're like, oh man, I didn't want to
Why are
watch a
these people
musical.
singing? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and
And they
especially,
sing a lot less in this than they do on stage. There's like, it's almost
yeah,
a sung through musical on stage.
yeah,
There's very little dialogue. So
yeah. And then it
there's,
makes sense too, because like every song in this just is them talking to each other. It's like back and forths and
mm-hmm.
everything. And so it makes sense that this would be how it would be
Yeah.
in the musical itself. Um, but yeah, I can honestly say, like, if I went into a movie not knowing it was a musical, I'd be disappointed as well, just because again, I'm not a musical person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't walk out or anything, but I'd just be like, oh, okay, musical, okay, I got it.
It would
But
throw you.
I like, yeah, but I'm a more informed person when it comes to
Hmm.
when I go to watch a movie. I pretty much know what I'm going to go see.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
I'm like, it's a little weird. Like I did go see Mean Girls. I thought it was a good movie.
I
So,
haven't seen it yet.
oh, it's on demand now. I think it's even on streaming. You should watch it already.
I
Musical
had to
person.
see the show 3 nights in a row because my daughter was in it. So
That's true. That's true. Well, then you could see if it was a good version. Which I think it was very well done. So as far
I already
as
know she had the best songs. So
which part
she's
did your daughter play?
Janice.
Oh, right, right.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this recently too.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah,
yeah,
like tons of
yeah,
people go into these movies and they have no idea it's a
yeah.
musical. And then that,
No, it's definitely a little bait and switch that
yep.
the trailers are doing. Now, to be fair, the
Hmm.
trailers are usually done by different people
Yes.
than by the directors and such like that. So they have no real control over that. That's dictated by the studios to
Hmm.
the people who make the trailers, compiling all that footage together. So there's a lot of times where a trailer will represent something. This is an example of Star Wars Rogue One, where there were
Mm,
things in the Rogue One trailer that didn't make it
that weren't
to
in
the
the movie.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they did significant reshoots on that movie that changed the back end of that movie. So there's parts in that trailer that you're just like, wait, that was nowhere in the movie. Why was that cool scene not in the movie?
Hmm.
And so that happens all the time. There was another one recently. Shoot, there was a movie that I watched that, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire.
Oh, Frozen Empire.
There were lines and bits of pieces in the trailer that looked great and then were nowhere in the movie. And I was
Mm.
just like, what are you people doing? Like, how do you not, like, one, like, I don't understand having cut that from the movie
Yeah.
to begin with, but then like it just frustrates me when it gets added to the trailer and then it's not in the
Not in
movie.
the movie. Yeah.
So, but again, so I think that's kind of where it comes down to, is the studio being scared
Hmm.
of saying, hey, this is a musical. Because to
Yes.
be fair,
They
musicals don't do well these days.
no, they don't.
So, but I think part of that is also they're shooting themselves in the foot by not
Hmm.
advertising it as a musical. Those who might be willing to go see it aren't going to go see it. And those who, you're trying to trick people into going and seeing a movie, into go and see this musical. And those people are going to be pissed. They're going to review it bad. You're going to get bad word of mouth, and that's going to
Yeah.
tank your movie even worse, I think, than having advertised it as a musical.
Yeah.
So,
You get that backlash. I
yeah,
mean, I lived in a world my whole life where there was no way I wasn't going to walk into this and know that it was Sweeney Todd the musical, but
right.
there's plenty of people who had no idea and just saw Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, I'm in, let's go, and then
Yeah,
they're singing. Like Craig tells me that when he went to see this, he had no idea it was a musical.
interesting.
Absolutely no idea. Still watched it, didn't get up and
Yeah,
leave or anything, but no idea it
yeah,
was a musical. So there are plenty when we get in our little bubbles,
yeah,
like in my world, Sweeney Todd's a musical, obviously.
yeah,
Like I
yeah.
know, I've seen this
But
forever.
again,
But
like I
for you,
said, if
like
you,
comic book stuff, like like okay,
yeah,
comic book stuff, like I know what's going to happen and all of this stuff. But like,
yeah,
how many times have you told me something and I'm like, oh, really? I had no idea. Like, so
right,
there's the
yeah,
thousands and millions of people who went into this movie, like, all right,
yeah,
let's go, Tim Burton, Johnny Depp.
yeah,
Everyone's singing. What's going on? Like,
right.
and the shock
Uh,
of this is the only non-Danny Elfman Tim Burton
yeah,
movie
yeah.
because
Well, I don't think it's
it's
the only non
Sondheim.
one. I don't think
I
it's the only
think
non, because
up
they
until
did
that
have,
point, I think.
maybe, but they had a
Hmm.
falling out for a little while too.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's actually a few movies that they didn't do together.
Mm,
And it might have been in this period. I know they're friendly again. So,
that's good.
um, yeah. So getting into it, let's get
Yes.
into the nitty gritty.
Yes.
Like I said, I think Johnny Depp does the best job singing in this.
Yes.
Outside of knowing the how
Hmm.
the actual singing is and everything like that. I think he's just really good at pulling off the bits where he does sing. Um,
Yes. And he
it's
acts through it very well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, there's that one moment where he's going through and he's talking about giving people shaves and stuff like that.
Yeah, Epiphany.
Um, yeah, I'm glad you know the song names because I don't. Um,
Epiphany.
that's a
Yeah.
great song too. That's a great moment too because he's like, hey, you sir, and all that, and where it's like
Mm-hmm.
very, and he's like pointing the blades at people and everything like that. Like he's
Yeah.
giving it his all in those moments. I'm like,
On
dude is
stage, that's
working
to
it
the
hard.
audience.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's really
That's
creepy.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because
um,
that's partially what the whole opening song is about, is telling, like, letting the audience know, like, you are an active participant in this.
interesting.
Not that they're asking them to get up, but
Right,
like
right.
you need to bear witness
Yeah,
to what you're about to see.
interesting.
Like you can't get away from it. This is going to be awful and it's going to be in your face, and there is no
Right.
escape from this for the
Which
next
would,
3 hours.
so this would have been a really great moment to have usurped from Evil Dead the musical.
Mm-hmm.
So because if anybody knows, Evil Dead the musical, which I've never seen, which I would love to see, but I've never seen it. I've listened to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But the you have to know when going there, the first couple of rows are a splash zone.
Yes, they
You will
are.
get splattered with blood.
With blood, yes.
Yeah.
And
And
I wanted to do it for years, and now I replaced my seats and my carpet, so I can't do this show. But for years, I was like, we need to do this show. We should do a midnight show. It would be great. There's a splash.
that would have been so cool.
I absolutely cannot do that now.
Oh man. But yeah,
Just
so yeah, no, this is why Evil Dead the musical has always been off Broadway.
yes.
Because they are not going to let you mess up their on Broadway stuff.
No.
But yeah, so it's I think that would have been a great thing for Sweeney Todd to have done is, dedicate a little splash zone first couple of rows there.
Yeah.
You're gonna get splattered with blood. Would have been kind of a little bit more interactive. Would have been
Give them time. They'll do
fun.
it.
Right?
They'll
Yeah.
do it. One of the revivals was off Broadway, like in a pie shop. It was an immersive experience
awesome.
where you were sitting at the tables, you had the beers and the pies, and they did the show around you.
That's cool.
So,
Like I've gone to
yeah.
a couple of theater in the round kind of things where we watched the only one that I can remember is Annie Get Your Gun. Or wait, is that what it's called?
There is an Annie Get Your Gun. Was it about Annie Oakley?
Yeah.
Yeah, then Annie
Okay.
Get Your Gun. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So we watched that, and that was like theater in the round where you a dinner theater in the round
Yes.
too. So you ate dinner, and like it's literally everybody sitting around the round stage, and so
The
that's
acting space, yeah.
yeah. So it's a very interesting experience. That would be a cool way to do Sweeney Todd. So because as you're doing it with in the round like that, where you're eating the pies and drinking and stuff.
Yep.
So that'd be a fun experience, especially if you don't know about Sweeney Todd going into it, and then you're eating the pies.
And then guess what, everybody?
Guess what? This is a very dark movie.
Very dark.
Very violent. The sequences very brutal. They do not, and this is what is interesting between this and Sleepy Hollow, where Sleepy Hollow, there's moments of blood, but no real gore and no real it doesn't seem like. I was very surprised that it was R-rated. I thought it was definitely more of a PG-13, but I guess there's just enough blood in it to make it, to push it over into that R rating. Whereas this is definitely hard R
yes,
rated, because he is slicing his necks and the blood is just gushing and going everywhere, and it's very lurid too. And I think that's part of it.
Fountains of blood.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting too, because I read with both of these, they filmed in that kind of blue filter and then had to use very orange looking blood to make it very red. And so it comes off, and it's so funny too, because in more modern movies, if you go back and look at the Hammer films, anytime there's blood on screen, it is this very deep bright red.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays because we we can get away with the more dark, real looking blood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, blood in on screen is more dark. But
Yeah.
in both of these movies, Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd, both of them have that deep bright red blood
Yeah.
in it. And I
That
think that,
old fashioned.
yeah, that old
Yeah.
fashioned, yeah. And so I think that lends itself too. But you were talking about the chair too, is
Yeah.
that he makes this chair, and it's funny too because I'm assuming the chair in the play is very similar to how it was in Jersey Girl, where when they kill them, they go forward,
They go
and
forward. Yeah,
slip off like a slide. Whereas
you
in
go
the
feet first
yeah,
because,
feet first,
we don't want to injure our actors on
yeah.
stage.
But
Tim
in
Burton's
this movie,
throwing
Tim
people
Burton
backwards.
head first, backwards, head first, and you're seeing it too. Every time somebody drops from that chair, they show them hitting
Hitting
the
the
concrete
ground.
below, the
Crunch.
stone floor below on their head. And I'm like, obviously those were dummies, but
It
damn, it's like
is
it's so
gruesome.
brutal. Yeah,
It's
it's
awful. And
brutal and
you
gruesome.
hear it like because I wind up
Oh
not
yeah,
watching it because it's too much, but you hear all the bones crunch. It's
yeah,
just it's so bad. Yeah, no.
yeah,
In the show, you can't like usually when you do it, if you're gonna do it with the chair, there's a one large set piece in the center that kind of rotates,
yeah,
and you'll have like maybe part of the pie shop on one side and the parlor on the other side, and a couple of things. And the top part of it would be the barber shop. So when you're up there and somebody, and he pulls the lever and the chair goes down, you go down feet first into the inside of that
yeah, yeah,
cube, kind of, so that you can
yeah,
make your exit out the back.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
when we built it and I got to take the first ride, like it's kind of just like a slide. You slide
Yeah,
down into it and then you get up and you get out of the way.
right.
Especially in that scene where he's killing a whole bunch of people, because that
Yeah,
is in
yeah,
the show.
yeah,
There is a scene where Anthony is searching for Joanna in the streets and Sweeney is killing a bunch of people, and like,
right.
about 3 or 4 ensemble members get their throats cut and down the chair. So you gotta clear the bottom of the slide when you
Yeah,
get
yeah,
there.
real
Somebody's
quick.
coming
Yeah,
behind you. Yeah.
yeah. That's too funny. Yeah. No, and like, yeah, in the movie is just utterly brutal. It's
Brutal.
so, yeah, it's just, the crack is just, yeah.
Mm.
The sound design for that was just like they enhanced that for sure. They were really like, let's make it as brutal as possible.
Yeah.
Um, and let's just show the monstrosity of both him and Miss Lovett, because I mean, and that's the thing, as much as Miss Lovett's trying to pull him back from this situation that he's in, she's not a good person either.
No.
She fully
No.
embraces using these people as meat.
Yes.
And to be fair, I mean, she's in a desperate situation herself. She's not making any money. She's, her pie shop's about to, go under and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so, and meat is hard to come by. And there's whole songs about that in the movie. and
Yes.
um and they're great songs. Don't let me dismiss any of it, because they really are. They're
Mm-hmm.
fun and good songs. I'm just not as familiar with them as you are.
Right.
And so, but it does put her in a situation where she's got to, or she's taking advantage of the situation. She's like, well, let's not waste these bodies. Let
Yeah.
me use these for their meat, and I can put them in the pies, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe make something of it. And that's what happens. It becomes a very popular place, and
Yep.
you know
Tastes
um
delicious.
um and it's like you said earlier, it's very much eat the rich kind of sentiment. It's
Yep.
very much a comment on class
Mm-hmm.
and all of that at the time period as well.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of that in there.
yeah, and so it's an interesting they come to a point where they need each other in that way, because he's got to get rid of the bodies and she's got to
Mm-hmm.
do something to help her business and everything. So it becomes not necessarily a partnership, but more of like a symbiotic relationship.
Well, for her, she wants it to be a partnership. She has
She
been in love.
does.
Yes, Benjamin Barker, which is Sweeney's real name, Mrs. Lovett
Right,
has been in love with him since
right,
before he got sent away.
Right.
So
Yeah. And you don't
everything
really
is
see that. You find out that later. You don't see that in the beginning that she was in love with him or anything like that in the movie.
not in the movie.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's not as clear in the movie as it is in the musical. In the musical, she pretty much is like well, that this part of the thing with Sweeney being so absolutely self-absorbed in his quest for vengeance is that she's saying all this stuff, but he
Yeah.
is just not listening. He
Yeah,
cannot
exactly.
hear
There's
it.
the whole
So,
sequence in the movie where
yeah,
she's having
we'll
this whole
go to the
fantasy
sea.
of them
Yeah,
going, yeah, this
by
whole
the
fantasy
sea.
of them
Yeah.
getting married and everything else. And it's a hilarious scene, a hilarious sequence. I love it. It's so
His
funny
deadpan
watching.
face the whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah, and he's just like, or like disgusted at points. It's just hilarious. Like, imagining this little gothic family of theirs and everything like that. It's so
Mm-hmm.
hilarious.
Because she's
It's-
just doing all this to try to, as you said, like, well, I'm going to accommodate you until I can get you to walk away from this, and then we're
yeah.
gonna live happily ever after.
Yeah, and I mean
And
that's ultimately where it comes down to is she thinks that after his vengeance is complete, that
mhm,
then after that moment, then they can, have their happily ever after.
yes,
And but again, things happen that, make that not happen. Um
yep, hmm
a but so this is one of the few, like I'll admit I'm not a huge Helena Bonham Carter fan.
me
Um
either.
she she does good in what she does. I'll admit that. Her some of the roles she's been in. I just I think the problem is just never been like her herself has never appealed to me. I think she does a good job in particular roles.
Hmm.
This one was good. Her role in the Harry Potter franchise as Bellatrix was really good. She's fantastic in that.
Yes.
I can't watch those movies anymore. Um,
Mm,
I can't. Like I don't it doesn't bother me anybody who still can. Um, but it's one of those things where I just can't separate the art from the artist anymore.
yeah.
Um,
No, I get it.
and I'm, not going to get into it fully, but anybody who
Hmm.
knows. Um, and but I think, her performance is one of the strongest in that series.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, and um I while I find her to be somewhat annoying in Fight Club, I think that's the character.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
so, so I think she's doing a good performance in that as well, even though I'm just like, ugh, I hate every part that she's in this movie. Um,
Yeah, she's super
but
annoying, but yeah.
yeah, but she's meant to be. So it's just
Yeah.
like, all right. But yeah, I've come around on her performance in that though too as well. So
Hmm.
but yeah, no, she's just one of those actresses that I think she's good in certain roles and stuff like that, and she does good at what she's doing. She accomplishes what she's meant to be doing, I think.
Yes. Yes.
I just think she plays
She's fine
such,
in this.
yeah, and I think she just plays such like horrible characters that you're just kind of like, ugh. But that's what she's doing a good job at doing that. So
Yes. Yes.
she plays really gross characters well. So
Yes, she does.
um yeah, and then Alan Rickman, man, that dude is both him and Timothy Spall in this.
Yeah,
Um
remember when he was like everywhere as the bad guy?
Timothy Spall, yeah,
Yes, like this
like
this phase
yeah,
of
this
like
yeah,
he
it's
was
so bizarre.
this
It's
phase of
so
his
funny.
career.
Yeah, it's so funny to like when you see that. It's like Peter Stormare.
Yes.
He's another actor who was like everywhere for like a good 5 to 10 years. And
Yep.
then he seems like he's vanished. He's still in tons of stuff. He's just not in the higher profile stuff that I
Yeah.
watch anymore. And so I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But yeah, Timothy Spall was like everywhere
He
for
was
that short
he was
amount of
the
time, like
bad guy.
right around
Yep.
the Harry Potter
Harry
era.
Potter. Yep.
Yeah.
He was the
Because he was
bad slimy
Wormtail. Yeah.
guy. Yeah, he was Peter Pettigrew.
Yeah. So and
Yeah.
actually he took this role and like I think he lobbied to get this role too because
Yeah.
his daughter wanted him to take it so that she
Because of
could be
Johnny
Johnny
Depp.
Depp. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and so he was like, all right, yeah, I'll take it. And I mean he does great. He's disgusting in this, just as
Oh,
he's disgusting in everything.
he's
Um
terrible. Yeah,
yeah.
awful. awful.
Yeah.
I mean, he is perfect. He's perfect casting for the Beetle. That's exactly
Oh
what
yeah.
the Beetle is
Oh,
supposed
okay.
to be. Yeah, no, he is perfect as the Beetle. And Alan Rickman, he's fantastic as the
Oh,
judge.
Alan Rickman is spectacular in everything he does. Like
Always.
that dude is
Yes.
like he was a game every time. Like
Yep.
I've not seen him in anything that I thought he was terrible in.
Hmm.
Even if it was a movie I didn't care for, he was still fantastic in it, like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Again,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I liked that movie when it first came out. I've gotten way so I haven't seen it in God 25 years. Um, so, but he's fantastic as the sheriff of
Yeah.
Nottingham in that.
Of
So,
course.
because I mean, he's Alan Rickman.
He-
Um,
He's
but
not afraid to be the bad guy.
yeah, yeah,
And the judge is
it's just
despicable.
disgusting. Like
Hmm.
just like when you think of the word reprehensible, that is that character
Yep.
right there.
Yep.
Um, because like okay, so he jails Johnny Depp's character.
Sends him to Australia.
Yeah, and um then takes the mother, takes his wife
Hmm.
and daughter, um like um abuses the wife
Yes.
because she doesn't want to submit to him, and then takes her daughter and throws her
Now,
out on the street.
it's important to note
Mm-hmm.
as we do this short
Yes.
synopsis before we keep like rambling that Sweeney has no idea what happened after he left, and he's
Yes.
hearing this story from Mrs. Lovett, who tells him
Yes.
that after this happens, his wife poisoned
Poisoned
herself
herself. She's
and died.
very so in the
And
movie
died.
she does not say died.
In
She
the
just says,
musical,
yeah.
which it is, she makes it very clear to Sweeney that Lucy is dead.
Okay. All
Lucy
right.
poisoned
Because in the
herself.
movie, she very specifically, and I noticed this when she said it
Yeah, said
in
she
the
took the
movie,
poison, never
like
said that she died.
she
Yeah,
never
that's
said that she died,
actually,
and then she says it
yeah,
at the end. She
yep.
says, I
She
only
poisoned
said that she
herself.
poisoned
Yeah.
herself.
Maybe you're
So
right. You're
in
probably,
in the
because
movie,
I
she
just
never
saw,
says died. Yeah.
you're probably right. But yeah, no. So this is Mrs. Lovett's version of it to
Yeah.
Sweeney. So this is
Yeah.
what he is working off of. So
Right.
yes, so when Sweeney gets back, Joanna's like 15, 16, is the
15.
baby.
Yeah. 15, 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
She
then
is the judge's
she's the
ward,
ward. Yeah.
and he
And
is
then
attempting to marry her. He's going to
attempting to
marry
marry
her.
her.
Now,
Yeah.
Antony, who is the sailor who Sweeney somehow escaped from the prison he was in, and the sailing ship saw him like drifting and picked him up, and that's how he gets back to London. So now Antony
Mm,
is this young, you have to assume he's about the same age as Joanna. The two
right.
of them are like they're the
Romeo and
secondary
Juliet.
romance.
Yeah.
They're both young and naive and la 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 la. So he like throughout, as in the movie, you see it like he's constantly just like Mr. Todd, Mr. Todd. Like this is like his new best friend. Like they picked him up out of the ocean, and for whatever reason, he just happens to get involved in this guy's whole life. So
Yeah.
that's how he knows Antony. He picked him up in the ocean and
Right.
brought Sweeney back to London. So when we start our story, that's where we're at. Mrs. Lovett gives Sweeney his little, that's what you missed on Glee. Here's all the
Yeah.
horrible stuff that happened while you were gone. Here's where we're at. And
Oh,
then
sorry, that
Antony
was funny. The Glee reference was hilarious.
just here's what you missed on Glee. And then
Oh, that gave me a
Antony
really bad acid flashback. Oh,
Antony sees Joanna, as in the movie. Antony sees Joanna. She's singing her pretty song about being a bird in a cage because she's a
yeah.
bird in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
And they fall in love instantly because it's musical theater and that's what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
And now we get going. Sweeney's
Yeah.
got his razors because Mrs. Lovett saved them. Even though she could sell them, she makes sure that he knows that. Times
Yeah.
are so bad, I can't even catch cats to put in my pies, but I saved your razors because I knew you were coming back one day because I love you.
Yeah.
Ah,
And he's oblivious.
and then revenge, revenge,
Yeah.
revenge, revenge, revenge.
And
Death,
to be
death, death,
fair,
kill,
like
kill,
I
kill.
understand completely. Like honestly, like
Yep.
if I like knew, like if I had come back and thought my wife and daughter would still be there and I could exact some kind of revenge, I would be doing that too.
Yep.
And I don't care that this other weird woman, you know, loves me and saved my razors and everything. It would be like,
Yeah.
thank you, but
Get
I've
out of
got
here.
business to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, shut up. So,
But
Pirelli.
yes, Pirelli,
Now we
Sacha
go
Baron
find
Cohen.
Sacha Baron Cohen. Like the less said, the
Um,
better. So
Thank you. Oh my God. I do not
the
understand. I'm going to say a little bit because I do not understand why this guy has like, any, like, popularity at all. He
no,
is like, don't understand why he's popular. Why, like, because you can't tell me that the Borat movies are really that good.
no,
I
they're not.
watched the first one. It's
I
not
watched.
that great. It's not
It's not.
funny.
No, no, I don't like it, but
And
some people do.
yeah. And so I'm just like, yeah, yeah, don't get me started on the people who do like that stuff. Um, but I don't understand. And thankfully his star in Hollywood has kind of been very tarnished. That
Recently.
we have not seen enough. We've seen more than enough of him. Literally. But
Yes.
we've hopefully he will go away.
I hope.
That's all it's like Russell Brand. Like hopefully they will go away to corners where we won't see them any longer.
Yes.
I'll take more
Get,
Timothy Spall. Put these
well,
guys away.
yeah, because I'm sure he's actually a nice person. The other
Yeah.
one, yeah,
Yeah.
no. He can go away.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But yeah.
So, but
No, so I
he's
wasn't
important.
sad to see
No.
his demise quickly in this movie.
His very quick demise, which is
Yeah.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, he knew Sweeney when he was Benjamin Barker.
He was an apprentice
He
of
was an
his.
apprentice to him and he recognized the razors. So they go out in the street to try to drum up business for the shop. He beats Pirelli at shaving someone the fastest, and Pirelli has Toby. And it's important because now we bring
Now we
Toby,
bring
the
Toby,
kid,
yeah.
into the story.
Yeah.
So
Because it's pretty
when
much all Pirelli serves is the introduction of Toby. Like
the
that's
introduction,
literally
yeah,
all that it's for. So
yep. And he's like, I knew you. So then Tony. So Sweeney slices his neck with the razor, and he is the first body that Mrs. Levitt says, "Oh, it seems an awful waste
yeah.
with the price of meat, what it is."
And
So
she takes his little coin purse and which
takes
comes
his
into play
coin
again
purse,
later.
comes into play later, and then that's how we get started. And yes, basically that is the end of Act One. So
Yeah.
Epiphany and A Little Priest, which is the name
Yeah.
of that song, where they start talking about the thousands and thousands of food puns about how the piccolo player is piping hot and all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thousands of food puns about how
Yeah.
you would taste the humans
Yeah.
in the pies. So we have that whole big song. That's the end of Act One. 15 minutes intermission. We're back for Act Two. and that's God, that's good, which is the antithesis of worst pies in London. Because
Yeah.
now she can't keep the pies on the shelf because everybody
Yeah.
loves the taste of human.
Yeah.
So
The long pork.
good. So I have that whole thing. Weenie still trying to kill people. Well,
Yeah. He is
two
killing
people in particular. He's
Yeah.
killing lots of people, but he's practicing. In the
Yeah.
meantime, I'll practice on less honorable throats.
Yeah.
So he's practicing. He's just gonna take everybody out. So there's a lady who's really important in the musical who gets kind of the shaft in the movie.
Okay.
That's the beggar woman. She's in the musical a lot more.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we
Yeah.
see her off and on through this. She's got a
Mhm.
few moments through here. She's very much, it feels like she's a weird throwaway character that we're just like, why does
Yeah.
this woman keep getting like lines and everything like that? What is her importance
Yeah.
to all of this? Like,
Yep.
what is going on here? And you
Yep.
find out.
You find out. And
So.
the way they handled her in the movie is my one big disappointment of the movie. But I understand why it happened because it is very showy. Like they did try to pull this movie back and have it not be quite so theatrical and presentational.
Right.
Like, yes, it is a musical, but it's a very like compared to what it is on stage, it's very grounded in reality. And a lot of the stuff that happens with the beggar woman on stage is very showy and very presentational. But losing a lot of those scenes takes away from the shock at the end.
I think it takes away from the impact. Yeah.
Yes. Now, knowing that you haven't seen the show on stage, she is like at the beginning, you have the whole choral thing. So you have
Right.
Attend the Tale of Sweeney Todd and all this, like everybody's on stage, full cast, and then everyone leaves, and it's pretty much like it is in the movie where the ship is coming into the harbor and Anthony and Sweeney get off the ship and they talk about, but the beggar woman is right there.
Hmm.
I feel like in the movie, I haven't seen Sweeney Todd as much as I've seen Sleepy Hollow, but I feel like in the movie, the first time you see the beggar woman is outside the judge's house when Anthony sees Joanna. And she explains to Anthony that that's
Yes.
Joanna and she's the judge's ward. And
Yes.
but in the musical, you see the beggar woman like immediately. She's one of the first
Right.
characters you see. So they get off the ship and she's
I think
begging
that was
for money.
I think they probably just did it for time more than anything.
Sure.
Like, it
Yeah.
it does feel like she's not, when it comes down to it, probably the less you see of her, the better, just because you don't want to tip the audience to her
Yes.
so early.
Because there is that as well, because from the audience in a musical, you have, you're pulled back. It's
Yeah.
not somebody's face on a giant screen
Right.
or on your TV screen, where if you're really looking at it and you're really looking, like, full spoilers, everybody,
Right.
the beggar
Yeah.
woman is Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy's alive.
Yeah.
Sweeney's wife is alive.
Right.
So you can see that it's the actress. Like, you can.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're really looking, they can't do as much as you can on stage. On stage, it's a shock.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the biggest shocks ever. Like, I had one of my interns went to see it on Broadway like 2 months ago, and she's like, I've never seen it. And I said, all right, I'm like, I'm not saying a word. I need to know. She texted me afterwards and she said, oh my God, I can't believe, like, it's a huge shock.
Yeah.
It's a shock. And the way that it's staged, you see her a lot. You see the beggar woman a lot. And it's very similar stuff. Like, she shows up, she answers some questions, she begs for some money. She's clearly a prostitute in the show.
She's not in the movie.
They don't do it. They don't do that in the movie, but in the show, she's very, like, every time she gets money from Anthony, she tries to get him to give her more for some other stuff. And he's like, get away from me. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But she's, that's a big part of it that is not in the movie. But the way that the scene is staged, where in the movie you see the beetle taking her to the party at the judge's house and what happens to her. The way that all of that is staged, Mrs. Levitt's song in the musical, is you see her, she's not the beggar woman at that point, but you see Lucy, and she's up in the shop, the barber shop.
Right.
She has usually when they stage it, she has a very specific set of movements. It's kind of like a dance as Mrs. Levitt is singing. She's rocking the baby. She puts the baby in the cradle. She's like, happy little wife. Like, everything is great. It's very specific. At the end, when she comes into the shop, the beggar woman, when she's in there, they don't really do it in the movie. Like, she looks around and you can kind of get the feeling like, I've been here before.
Right.
But they don't make a big deal out of it. In the musical, she does the same movements, the same.
So
dance.
if you're paying attention as an audience member, you're like,
you know who she is at that point,
right?
And it's like the first punch. You're like, oh no, and then he comes up and he kills her.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, I think in the movie though too, because we can see her more, and I think you have to, you're trying to make the cuts where you can to make it not run too long, that you get to see her and you go, wait, is that Lucy? And so that way the audience does figure it out. And the audience does figure it out before, so that whenever he does it, that and he might not know yet, but and then and then once he finds
doesn't
out,
but that impact, like, if you've been paying attention, like, I guess it works in both ways, but to me it feels more impactful on the stage, just how it's handled. But I know that they just couldn't do it because of, on a screen you can't be up close to somebody. It's a lot easier to hide someone's identity on stage,
for sure,
when the audience is pulled back, than it is in that. But it's like a 1-2 punch. It's like one punch, 2 punch when he kills her, and then the third punch when the oven door opens and he sees her face, and then he knows, and then Mrs. Levitt. Yep. Said she took the poison, never said that she died. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So, yep. That's the big shock. That's the big twist.
Yeah.
Lucy is alive, or was.
Or was. Yeah. Yeah. And then like, she's trying to, because it comes down to it where like there's a sequence between them, and to be fair, I watched this very sleepily when I was at the end of it. And so I don't know. I'm assuming Lucy knew who he was the whole time.
She says several times, and I think the only time she says it in the movie is then. But on stage, she says, "Hey, don't I know you,
Yeah.
mister?" I'm not going to sing it, but
Yeah.
but but she says it at the very beginning when
Yeah.
he first gets off the boat. "Hey, don't I?" And then he's like, "Get the hell away from me," because she's
Yeah.
not what she is. What she is.
Yeah.
And then a couple of other times. And she talks about Mrs. Lovett because she's in the shop, just like in the movie. She's in the
Yeah.
pie shop, and Mrs. Lovett hates her because Mrs. Lovett knows who she is. So that's
Yeah.
why she's like,
Well, and
"Toby,
she
get her
doesn't
out
want
of
her
here."
there. Yeah. She
No,
doesn't
because
want her
that's
there
gonna
because
make
she wants
her whole
Parker
house
for
of cards is
himself.
gonna
Yeah.
come down. She's been
Yeah.
trying to keep Benjamin Barker for herself this whole
Yeah.
time. He can't see her.
Yeah.
Which is why when she sees her body in there, she's trying to get her in the oven before he gets
Yeah.
down there.
Before he gets down there. Yeah.
The jig is up if he's
Yeah.
and unfortunately the jig was indeed up as soon as he saw her face.
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
it.
That was it. Yeah.
Yep.
No, Miss Lovett meets a very fiery end there, right there in the oven. That's
Yep.
it was a rough way to go for sure.
Can't take the heat. Get out of the oven. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
No, it's pretty bad. But
Oh,
yeah,
it's bad. Yeah.
it's but yeah, it's an interesting, fun movie. Yeah, I mean, you have and then Toby, because he's realized that these people are
Yes.
fucking psychotic.
These people are
that,
crazy. They're killing people. Yeah.
He grabs one of Sweeney's razors and
Yes.
slices him, and then they just he bleeds
He
out right
bleeds
there
out over Lucy.
over
Yeah.
Lucy. And it's and that's the end. That kid's gonna be messed up for life.
Yes.
Kid's
Yes.
already swilling and like swigging gin. That kid's gonna be a
Yep.
drunk by already. I mean, he's already
Kid's
a
already
drunk.
a drunk. Yep.
He's gonna be even more of a drunk after this point.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I guess Anthony and Joanna get away. And again, and he
Yes,
doesn't
they
know
do
that
in the musical.
and
Yeah.
he doesn't know that that was Joanna in the trunk at that point either, because he's about to kill her
No,
too.
he's about to kill her too. And the only reason why he doesn't is because the judge is still alive.
Yeah.
How he survived when he went down backwards. But I mean,
Right?
that's
Throat slit and backwards. Yeah.
but that's the way it is in the musical. So they had
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to, this is how it works. But yeah, he's grabbing onto her skirt and she's screaming, "Die, when won't you die?" And that
Yeah.
distracts him, and Joanna's able to run away. But yeah, he almost killed his own kid too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blind rage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah,
it's
a mess.
it's a very dark movie.
Very.
Yeah, you have to know going into it that it's dark. I think you can kind of tell people, hey, look, this is a dark movie without spoiling anything. Just say,
No, it's very
Crazy.
dark. It's very gory. It does, you just have to know. And they sing.
Yeah, yeah,
Those are the
yeah.
things you have to tell
Yeah,
people.
don't hide
going
that
into
it's a
it.
musical.
But again, it is worth it. It's it is a Tim Burton movie. It looks beautiful. It's shot beautifully. The orchestrations of the music is unbelievable. It was the original orchestrator from the first Broadway production, and instead of the 27 musicians from Broadway, he reorchestrated it for 78. That was
Yeah.
an orchestra of 78 musicians, and it sounds like it.
Oh,
The
yeah.
music sounds fantastic. It is adapted very well. I didn't know until when I researched it today that Tim Burton had seen it in London in 1980.
1980. Yeah, he'd
So
see
that
and
was the
he-
first production. It opened
Well,
Broadway 79 and then 80, and he
Yeah.
saw it 3 times
yeah,
and had been
in the
trying
same
to
week.
make a movie out
Yep.
of it for years.
Yeah. And
So
originally, again, this is another time where somebody else was about to direct it before he
yeah.
got it. And Sam Mendes actually was
Yeah.
supposed to be the one directing it, which
Yep.
I don't think would have, I think probably would have been okay-ish, but I'm not a big fan of Sam Mendes, so I don't care.
Well, he's a
But
he's a theater director, so that's
oh,
why
well, I
they
mean, that makes sense.
yeah. They
Um, so I mean, it would have probably been great for those who like Sam Mendes.
yep.
But I think that Tim Burton, puts his own little flair onto it and
Yes,
definitely made
and
his own version of it that worked really well.
he did, and I like seeing it from that perspective, knowing that he saw it, you know, at
And
at that time and obviously was approaching it as a fan and like
right.
from a real passion project stand. You you can see. I mean, he
Well,
did do a really good job adapting it for
eh,
what it is.
yeah, and you can kind of see that when looking at Sweeney Todd as it is, like how much that influences Tim Burton from that
Yes.
point on. Like this is almost the
Absolutely.
culmination of his career in a
Yeah.
way, everything, all the weird shit and everything else like that that makes Tim Burton who he is.
Yeah.
Part of that, like part and parcel of that is Sweeney Todd.
Is
And to
seeing
be able
that
to,
show and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then to be able to make this movie, I mean, it's just one of those things where I'm sure he was fucking giddy as all hell to be able to finally
Yeah.
make this into something that, was
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, I enjoy it. I
And I
I
don't
think it's a
remember it
really
being
good
super
adaptation.
successful, but I don't think it failed either.
It
Um,
didn't. It didn't. I think when I remember seeing that Sleepy Hollow did 200 million, and I think this wound up doing about 100 million,
yeah,
which, 100 million is good.
yeah. I mean,
It's a
depends
fair
on
amount of
how
money.
much it cost, which
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe that it would have cost that much. Let's see. I'm just trying to real quick. Usually tells me. The budget was 50 million and it made 153.4 million. So it made
Oh,
three
not
times its
bad.
budget. So yeah, so
Yeah.
it actually was fairly successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, not gangbusters, but I don't think any of Tim Burton's movies, other than like the Batman movies, have done that
True.
well. So,
True. Yes.
um, and again, that has that inherent
Mm.
cachet to it that nothing
Yes.
else has.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it feels very much like this, along with Vincent Price movies, the Hammer horror stuff, and everything
Yeah.
like that was very much the influence on a young Tim Burton. And
Yeah.
um, this is, both of these movies, both Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd, are both kind of like these culminations in these things where they use these. And I think even like, something like Edward Scissorhands, are very much in that vein of, this is who he is as a person. And that's why I would
Yes.
like anytime I would suggest anything to people, these would be the movies I would suggest in
Yeah.
terms of what is inherently Tim Burton.
Yep.
So
This is the vibe
yeah,
for
exactly.
sure.
Yeah. 100%. So I mean, and these make for a very good double feature. Lots of parallels between both of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're both the most horror of any of his work.
Yeah.
Uh Dark Shadows and maybe Edward Scissorhands a little bit skirt it a tiny bit, but they're more comedic and more
Yes,
lighthearted.
for sure.
Whereas these are very dark, very bloody.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously both of them
Gory,
are
yucky.
rated. Yeah. Um,
Yes.
and both with very different Johnny Depp performances as well. So,
Very different. And I forgot he was Oscar nominated for this.
oh, interesting. I did not know that.
That's
Yeah.
honestly like he deserved. He won the
Yeah.
Golden Globe for the musical comedy
Makes sense.
and was
Yeah.
Oscar nominated for this. And honestly, like, yeah, I can
Yeah.
see it. He
I can see it.
really, really does a good job in this.
Yeah. And I mean, and stretching out to be the singer, like to singing and to do this and everything, it's a bold career move too, because
Yeah.
especially if you weren't a singer of any sort and needed to do
Hmm.
that vocal work and stuff like that, that's a big ask,
Yeah.
so it's really cool. It's and like I said, I think he was the best performer in this movie. Everybody else
Yeah.
does well, but like
Yes.
it's a little funky. I'm not gonna lie. Everybody else is a little bit like, okay. for me, but he does such a good job at doing it, and and doing the British accent as well, and
Yes,
everything amongst everybody else who's pretty much all British.
they're all
So
British. Yeah.
so it's he holds his own very well. Obviously, Oscar nominated well enough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Alan Rickman, close second.
yeah,
He's a close second in this, but the judge is just the judge is one note. The judge is despicable. Like he's
yeah,
just
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
But yeah, no, he definitely put in the work. It
Oh
was
yeah.
it was a stretch, it was a risk, and it paid off.
Yeah. And I think that's true of both of these movies too. Like, playing a kind of against type at the point in his career in '99 when he did Sleepy
Mm-hmm.
Hollow as well. He'd
Mm-hmm.
been known more for, I mean, yeah, for weird stuff. He'd been doing some weird stuff here and there and everything like that, but he was still known as kind of like the pretty boy,
Yeah.
from 21 Jump Street and everything. So, getting to play the kind of the squeamish, fainter guy and everything like that. Although,
Mm-hmm.
to be fair, he'd already done Ed Wood and stuff like that. So he'd already been
Yes.
playing against type pretty well. So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, but both good movies. I
Yes.
appreciate you bringing them to me.
Yay.
Yeah.
This
So,
was a blast.
yeah, especially getting to hear all the extra information about
Oh,
the musical itself. So
all my
that
musical
helped give
stuff.
it context.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you videos now. You're gonna rue the day.
No.
I'm gonna send you the opening scene. Oh, the one. Did you see that they had that Christopher Lee was supposed to be in this and he got cut in
I
Sweeney
might
Todd?
have read that, but I don't
Yeah.
remember. No, that's funny.
Well, well, that's why it's like I never know how to say his last name because it seems like it can't possibly just be Head, but Anthony Head from
Yeah, Anthony Head. Yeah.
Giles. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Giles
supposed to be
from
like three guys. Yeah, Anthony
yeah, it
Head,
was like him and Christopher Lee and one other
some other
person,
dude.
and
Yeah.
they were the ghost narrators, which I'm
Yeah.
assuming it was how they were going to cycle through some of the choral ensemble stuff that they
Yeah.
cut. So I guess they
Yeah.
were going to do that, and then they wound up cutting it for time constraints because I think
Yeah.
Johnny Depp's daughter was very sick while
Yes.
this
Yeah.
was being filmed, and he had to take a long absence, and then that got cut. So that makes sense. So I guess in some way they weren't going to cut all the choral stuff. They were just going to cycle it
Right.
into having having Christopher Lee be a ghost.
Yeah.
But so then the only thing that remains is that
Just that
cameo,
one little bit with
that
Anthony
one
Head.
little
Yeah.
bit where he just randomly shows up.
Yeah.
I
It's,
watched this I watched this recently with my daughter and she was like, "Wait a second." And I was like, "Yeah, I have no idea what he did
yeah.
in this
Why
movie."
is Giles here really
Yeah, I'm like,
weirdly for a second? Yeah.
that's literally all he does. And then I researched, I was like, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. All right
But
then.
yeah, we did mention earlier that Tim Burton has a habit of casting his girlfriends or wives, and by this
Yes.
point, Helena Bonham
Helena
Carter
Bonham
was his
Carter.
wife.
Yep.
So now he has
Mm-hmm.
moved on now, like we said with Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, his
Mm-hmm.
new love of his life is Monica Bellucci, and she will be in that movie now too.
Yep.
Which I mean, to be fair, fine, whatever. At least most of them have been good actresses.
Correct.
You know,
Yes.
there are some directors who put in their wives who are not always the strongest. Sometimes they're good and stuff, sometimes they're not
Mm.
good and stuff. Rob
Yep.
Zombie. um um but and I'm not saying she's terrible. She's a good
No.
actress, but it just depends on the role for her.
Yeah.
Um
People get mad at James Gunn for that too, but I don't mind his wife. I think she's cute. I think she's fine. I think
she's been
people just
great in
try and
the DC
yeah.
stuff. Like
I
I
think
don't have a
people
problem with her.
people are just mad at James Gunn
Yeah. So
because
weird.
people are crazy. Look, the
They
terminally
really are.
online, there's no
Yeah.
rhyme or reason to why they
Yeah.
get mad about stuff. So
Right.
go touch grass.
Right. Exactly. Seriously, turn your phone off. Go outside. Play in the hay.
Mm-hmm.
Something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Yeah. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. As always, we
Always.
have now talked for probably about 2 hours.
2 hours. Yep.
Yeah, so this will be a very long episode when I tack on the beginning segment that I do with Donna now. So
Hi, Donna.
but
Oh
yeah,
dear.
no, it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Sure, I have my link tree, which I think you'll put in the show notes. And your first two that you'll see on there, recently went back to Frame to hang out with Sean and Andy, and we talked about, I know, what a surprise. We talked about Ready or Not and Glass Onion for my theme that I've been cooking up for a year of women against the super rich. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, those two, you can frame to frame it right there with the ending shot, which is why it needed to be those two movies.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
You have women eat the rich, light it on fire, walk away like a queen. So we had that, had a great time talking about those two movies. And then the other thing was I made poor Bo watch 16 Candles so that we could reevaluate it for its 40th anniversary for Movieversaries.
That movie is not aged well at all.
And I don't think my good friend Bo will ever forgive me for making him watch that movie. He'd never seen it before? He had never seen it before. Okay, listen, when you're going to start a podcast about let's reevaluate art on a significant anniversary, and I say, hey, guess what's turning 40 this year? I guess you should be nervous in the future because, yikes, he had never seen it. And he is himself, as he's put it, too woke for this movie. So that's a really good listen. It's so good he was on practically like a press tour for it. Like he mentioned that on like every podcast he was on until it premiered.
Yeah. See, even I'm smart enough not to revisit that movie.
Don't want. Oh my God. But we do get we laugh a lot, but it does get very serious in terms of. Oh yeah.
No, it has to. Yeah.
It turns into a very serious discussion.
It's a cringe movie now. Yeah.
About a lot of the things. And I bring up Molly Ringwald's amazing essay that she wrote in 2018 about reckoning with her, with her movie past as the mother of a teenage daughter now.
Yeah.
In the climate that we're in. And it is very relevant. It was a relevant movie to have a discussion about for its 40th anniversary in terms of what we as a society used to deem acceptable for entertainment and how far we've come. So
yeah, definitely.
So those two on the top of my link tree, highly recommend.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, I thank you again for coming on. I'm sure I will have you on again very soon. I know I will, actually.
Yes, I know. I'm like, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Get used to me, everybody.
Right. She doesn't just do We Made This podcast. She does mine too.
That's right.
I think I'm the only We Made This, right?
Yeah. Everything else is We Made This.
That's too funny.
My bingo card. I've almost got a bingo.
To be fair, like most of my guest appearances are on We Made This stuff.
We Made This too.
I'm on Vamp Videos and Podcast 616. If it's Hugh, I'm on. So
pretty much. Yep.
But yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks again to Violet for joining me. Next week, Ashley Thomas returns to the show to talk about the MCU Disney Plus show, Ms. Marvel. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is a part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Please check out morbidlybeautiful.com/podcasts for more great shows. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Harper Smith. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.